call the meeting to order. Reading of the district's promise statement, providing an exceptional education where all students are known, valued, and empowered to thrive. And do we have any additional items for the agenda?
I want to add 8F. We have Brian Wright from Lunchtime Solutions here.
Okay. So adding 8F, any other additional items?
One other additional thing is under staff and personnel. This afternoon, there were the fall coaches added to the personnel staff changes.
Okay, so that list is a lot bigger.
That list is quite a bit longer than it was.
Okay. All right, with that, do I have a motion to approve the agenda with adding 8F? Sorry.
So moved.
Motion by Laura Sy. Do I have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Tim Burke. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. Motion carries 5-0. I think I got 5 here. I count.
Yeah.
Yep.
Recognition of visitors in open forum. We do have some members in the audience. I think they're all on the agenda. Let's see, positive recognition. Do we have anything?
Yeah, I was watching the last board meeting, and I know some of these are kind of past, but I felt like we should recognize all these. So we had the Teacher of the Years, Heather Moore for elementary and Sam Schroon for the high school. And then Support Staff of the Year, Janice Peterson, and I think Marlene is here, so congratulations. We had for track, the Assistant Coach of the Year for the section, I believe was that announcement, was John Kaplan,
Yep.
one of our coaches, and the Coach of the Year for the girls team, I believe, was
Yep.
the section was one of our coaches, and that was Sam Schroon. And then, just wanted to congratulate, I was hoping Maddie would be here, but the Miss Janesville attendance, first attendant was Maddie Holland, second was Victoria Blomstrom, and Miss Janesville Ariana Aguilar. And then, Maddie Lewick took third place novice female at the state track tournament. So, just wanted to recognize all that.
Alright. And I know we had mentioned it, but Eric was just in Into the Woods at the Mankato Playhouse, having the lead role. So recognize him.
Yeah, I think you guys did that then, right?
I don't know if we did, because it was,
It was-
the performance was after the last board meeting.
Yes.
Oh, okay. I thought I looked at that.
It could be, I
Yes.
don't know. But the performance
But
went off
yes.
very well.
Yes, it was very good.
Do we have any other positive recognition? Okay. Then I will move on to the resolution of accepting donations. If I can bring it up here. It won't let me bring it up. Can you? I'm gonna attempt this, I think. Okay, we've got Bulldog Backers, $975.93 for the DARE program. The Fraternal Order of Police South Central, $500 for the DARE program. Elysian Auto Service, $500 for the Cody Spees Scholarship. Bulldog Backers, $4,004.39 for Elementary Field Day Musical Workshop and 3D Printer Filament Recycler. Janesville Memorial Day Association, $50 to the high school choir. Fraternal Order of Police South Central, $250 for FFA. Dennis and Karen Jo Feudy, $250 for the Chris Feudy Memorial Scholarship. American Red Cross, $750 for the Blood Drive Scholarship. MSHSL Foundation, $4,298 for leadership course and activity fees. The Bulldog Backers, $6,506.51 for weight room equipment. Pug Mill kindergarten graduation gowns. Fraternal Order of Police South Central, $250 as an FFA donation. Simply Saved Thrift Store, $1,000 for the DARE program. Janesville Memorial Day Association, $100 for the band and the choir program. MSHSL Foundation, $4,298. We get two of those? Oh, okay. So then, from MSHSL Foundation, $4,298 for Leadership Academy activity fee scholarships. Elysian American Legion, Post 311, $1,000 for DARE program expenses. Bulldog Backers, $4,122.25 for the senior banquet. Bulldog Backers, $1,210 for Who We Play For heart screenings. Janesville Area Chamber of Commerce, $500 for marching band uniform shirts. And Casey's Black Bud Giving Fund, $200 for cash for classrooms. That is a big list. Wonderful to see. So do I have a motion to accept the resolution accepting donations with many thanks?
So moved.
Motion by Kevin Bourne. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by Tim Burke. Bourne,
Yes.
Burke,
Yes.
Cahill,
Yes.
Zeiss,
Yes.
Dashner. Yes. Motion carries 5. All right, on to reports and presentations. The Student Representatives Report.
I haven't been here for a while, so I don't really have anything to report on. I've been really busy, but I don't know, just here to listen in on the topics of discussion and try and put in some nice input.
Okay. Well, thank you for being here. So then we will move on. Does anybody have any questions for? Then we'll move on to the superintendent report.
Okay, we had a, target review citation for for our special education. We just need to make sure that all of our purchase orders are being signed off on prior to them purchases being made. Not a big deal, something we can fix easily with some training. Lunchtime Solutions, Brian Wright is here tonight to talk about where they are in the hiring process. And then there is some money available for additional para training. We get 6 hours prior to school starting for para training, and then any new hires, we get 6 hours for new hires within the first 60 days that they're hired. And then we have the wonderful end of the year audit coming up in the near future. As far as activities, fall registration, or actually the full year's registrations are open now. Fall seasons start August 12th for varsity and junior varsity, August 19th for junior high, and the pre-season meeting will be on August 7th with parents and students. Activities, they've also posted the softball position and the fall cheerleading head coach positions for both. As far as what's happening with buildings and grounds, the roof project is going slower than anticipated due to weather. So rocks are removed from the building. The roof still should be done by the start of school. The track's is currently being resurfaced. They like to work when it's cooler outside and there's not as much wind, so last night I know they worked till about midnight. The parking lots were seal coated last week. Within the building, we've moved a couple offices around. The waxing of the floors is nearly complete. Community ed, We have a daycare licensing inspection coming up next week that we're preparing for. Within the human resources, we do not have qualified applicants for the behavior interventionist position, so we're looking at creative ways to try and post and fill that position. As far as the elementary, we have targeted services, extended school year, and Barton training, learning happening right now, so we have students in and out of the building for that throughout the day. High school, we did, Mr. Rysam and I met with our workforce coordinator last week, and they're gonna be working together with our college and career readiness coordinator to get out in the community and see what we can do to work within local businesses here within our 3 communities. Mr. Rysdam's also been doing a lot of policy work. We're gonna discontinue religion release for the high school. We have a new online platform for the high school called Edgenuity. So our students are able to stay within, therefore the dollars stay within. And then cell phone policy will be a big focus this year. And then this afternoon, I had a meeting with our staff here about the mail clinic across the street and how it would be used. They've reached out to us to discuss how we would be using the building and want a document for it, so we got that document going today. We'll be sending it off to them to see what they have to say about what they're going to do with that building. Whether it's sell it, try and sell it, or whether they're going to donate it. Any questions for me?
Religious release, is there something in place of it, or are they just kind of changing the way they're handling it?
They're changing the way they're handling it.
Gotcha.
Otherwise, we changed some stuff a number of years ago where the students, they can miss, and we have to allow them to miss, but we're also allowed to keep teaching, so we're gonna continue teaching. And we got a little bit of pushback from the churches on that we're gonna continue teaching. However, we need to be able to get our hours and minutes in. So, Mr. Rysam has met with them a couple times this summer.
Planning on reaching out and having our second meeting late this week, early next week. Definitely want to keep an eye on those conversations.
Right.
Yeah.
So,
What's that? Oh, do I need to repeat that, or did everybody hear me?
It's for the.
We did.
Yeah, we heard you, but for the live
Sorry,
stream,
I'm missing
yeah.
protocol. No, I've reached out, talked with the churches, Trinity and St. Anne's, and had our conversation about discontinuing religious release, and we're planning on meeting again later this week, early next week, and having follow-up conversations.
Are there any concerns with the delays from the weather to complete our projects on time for
No.
school starts?
no, we've been in contact with all of the companies involved, and there isn't. They may be buttoning some stuff up, but all the major work and the craning work will be done before school starts. Assuming though, it stops raining every other day or.
Okay, any other questions?
This is not really a question, but could I have access to the cell phone use policy that's on the agenda? I was trying to look at it on my phone and it says I need to request access.
Yes, I can get you access.
Thanks.
Okay, then we will move on to budget information and historical cash balances.
That's fine. Can see it better.
Yeah.
questions about the historical cash balances? Okay.
And we'll move on to 8D, committee reports. Starting with the Curriculum and Instruction Committee.
Yeah, so we met with Casey and she presented a lot of data. So I'll just kind of do a little summary as I go through these. The elementary reading looked pretty good. There were some classes that were a little lower that she's looking into. Math was up for all of the grades in the elementary. For high school, again, a couple of classes were up and a couple were down, so looking into those. And for math, they were up except the one class, it stayed the same. So at least it wasn't down on those. We talked about title, ADSES, the intervention team, reading and math core, classroom interventions, reading conferences K through 6, small group work, math and reading, and then they're working on their letters training and MTSS and vertical alignment work. Other things, Math Academy class, restructure intervention team in process, future plans, continuous successful programs for this year, math and ELA intervention courses, adjusting SPED schedule and supports, training and resources for MTSS. And then we did talk about the classes where there's most of the Fs, and those were intermediate algebra, algebra 2, English 9. That was fall semester. Spring semester, intermediate algebra, algebra 2, English 10, and US history 1. And then talked about math curriculum. They piloted the new curriculum from McGraw-Hill, but had determined that we already have the curriculum that's similar enough, like there wasn't enough that had changed. So they are not going to purchase the new curriculum and just use the current curriculum. And then we also had a lengthy discussion about weighted grades, which I think we'll talk more about tonight, so, and whether we should actually start them next year for the seniors or start them for sophomores, and then the following year, sophomores and juniors, and then the following year, sophomores, juniors, and seniors. We discussed the READ Act, some stuff going on there, and MTSS a little bit more. And then there are some issues with the high school schedules, so there's a lot of adjusting being done now that the new career and college readiness coordinator, is she here yet?
Not quite yet.
Not yet. Will be here, so then they will be adjusting them.
Mhm.
So, I don't know, I kinda went through that kinda fast, but anything that we talked about that wasn't on here that you guys can think of? Or any questions from anyone?
Did they ever talk about, like, since the majority of the fails were from, like, intermediate algebra and algebra 2 of figuring out how to teach the curriculum differently? Was there a discussion about that?
That's partly why they were looking at the curriculum, the math curriculum,
Okay.
and changing that.
We talked pretty substantially about that. And again, tying more goals for improvement in those areas. Again, 2/3 of all the fails are in math
Mm-hmm.
across the board,
Yeah.
both semesters. So we have some challenges there. So yes, we believe that it'll get better. I guess I'm not going to go into details as to what was said, but there needs to be improvement in that area.
Yeah, because I've noticed a lot of the different subjects, like usually every unit or whatever, there's at least something new to it.
Sure.
Where for math, it's you're being taught different things, but you're being taught the same way. It's just
Mhm.
get talked to about it, have a small lecture, do a practice, do the homework, practice homework until you get to the test, and then you restart. There's no differences or like any types of projects that could be done that could maybe help some more like visual learners versus more auditorial learners, stuff like that, so.
Well, correct me if I'm wrong, but this math curriculum that we have not been following. And that's what, I know I said it's the current curriculum, but we haven't actually been following it. So that's what we're planning to do, right?
Yeah, so the math curriculum that we're using is based off of what we're looking at with McGraw-Hill, but we haven't been using the books, we haven't been using any of that. Personalized learning, COVID pushed everything online, which I think needs to be corrected. And it needs to be more in the classroom, hands-on, notebook, pen, paper, show me your work.
Yep.
Okay, this is right, that type of thing, rather than having a Google whatever, just do everything for you. There's not that much feedback with that. So yeah, the push was at the end of the year is we needed data. We needed to see what could happen if we started teaching out of the books again. We followed the curriculum, and in some classes we saw some pretty good results. And it's just going to be push, and figure it out type of thing. But I think we're in a good place to be able to push these things.
So next year there should be changes that
Yeah,
we'll see.
and I think
Yeah.
the reason why, the reason that we're not purchasing curriculum is because they're due in 2 years anyway, and it's new curriculum coming down from the state, and the standards are going to change, and none of these books are gonna have any of these standards, some of the new ones, in place, so we're gonna have to figure that out as well. But that also ties into the new online thing. They update their curriculum as the standards change, so that will also be a useful tool for our teachers to, oh, okay, this is kind of how we do it, this is the way we can play this, and it's supportive in nature, so, yeah.
Thank you. Did that answer your question?
Yeah,
Or-
for sure.
Okay.
The best way I can describe math at our school is quantity over quality. They don't really care how you get to the answer as long as you get to it eventually, and you have to do that 30 times, you know? Because I've seen a lot of students that if they'll do all of their work, make sure to write all of their answers down in a notebook before they submit their Google form in case they get some right, or if they get some wrong, they have to redo it, stuff like that. And then it's just kind of like pushing through it, trying to figure out as many possible incorrect answers and hope that one of them is the correct one. And then on top of that, having assignments that are, instead of having 7, 8, possibly 10 on paper where you can show your work and then it gets graded by an actual person, it's 2 assignments of 20 questions that's being graded by a computer. So,
Yeah, I think the goal is more paper and a little less computer, right? Yeah.
Yeah, from Casey and I's standpoint, the way we want to push things, it's going to be, let's get back to basics, let's get back to doing things the way they know that they work, historically have been proven to work. Technology is wonderful and it's great and it gives us avenues and different ways of doing things, but I don't think it's a replacement for us just rolling up our sleeves and doing the work, making sure that we understand it, and then trying again. You know, practice makes perfect. Perfect practice makes perfect. So that's what we have to do.
Thank you.
Anything else? Any other questions? to policy committee report. Well, as we get some ready to roll out, we get more changes on, from MSBA to make some more updates. But the ones that we have been working on currently have been the cell phone policy and the, Katie, help me out here, the
Field trip.
field trip policy.
Yep. Did we talk about the attendance one
And
too?
the attendance one, I
Attendance
think
policy.
you're still looking
Yep.
at, right?
Attendance is still in the works, that's
Yep.
a mess, and that's mostly just me wrapping my head around why we're doing what we're doing. And I know there's reasons, but I still have to figure it out, you know? But that's gonna be a process, guys, sorry. I mean, it's,
No, the attendance is huge, so.
but it's, sorry. Yeah, so it's, cell phone policy, field trip policy, attendance, which is a mess, but we need to sort through it, and this is an issue that's statewide. It's certainly not just us. If you look at more of the urban areas, it's a complete and utter nightmare. And, so it's gonna be absolutely a focus when it comes to keeping our kids in the classrooms, because if we look at those fails, we can tie them directly to how often we've been here. You'll see a direct correlation, and that's just across the board. You're gonna see it, so, obviously, that's gonna be a big push. There was one other one that had some changes.
Online learning.
Online learning, yeah, that had some changes as well, and updates, and I uploaded, I think, that into the document, so.
I have them.
Okay, so,
Should we just give them this? So then they
you gotta
don't.
make it work, I'm sorry.
Probably would work.
Any questions on that, or did we miss anything?
Because we're gonna dive deeper into the cell phone later, so, right, because that's on the agenda further down.
Well, that was just the
It's further
second
down.
reading.
Just
Yeah.
second
Yeah,
reading.
but if
Yep.
we want to talk about that,
Yeah.
it's-
Yep.
we're gonna wait till then.
Yep.
All right, so then if there's nothing there, we will move on to 8E for the community center presentation by Gina Peterson.
Yep. Hit the button.
Hi, guys.
Hi.
I know all of you, but Gina. I think it was a little over a year ago that Ben and I were here. That was very early in our process with the community center. So now I'm here representing you tonight, or from the community center representing, to kind of get you up to speed on where we're at. We've been, moving ahead, and also with this project, it's kind of an interesting one. I've never been a part of something like this where you're planning something that doesn't exist. But where I'm at, as far as like a marketing standpoint, before we hit the ground running, is I'd like to have all my questions or our questions answered before we go out to the public with it, because I would hate to field questions that we don't know answers to. So the reason I'm here tonight is I want to update you on the progress of it and where we're at, and then also discuss a possible partnership with the school and the community center and what that would look like, and I'll try to keep it concise but to the point. I do have some mock-ups of the layout. I'm giving these to you in confidence, I hope, just to kind of share where we're at. Again, nothing is set in stone, but we also had to have a floor plan, because you need to have a floor plan so you know square footage, so you know what the land, all these things that have to come in place before, chicken or the egg. So I do only have 7 copies, so share with whoever. Jeremy, I met with Mr. Erler 2 weeks ago, and to give him an update, and then make sure, before coming here tonight too. So he has a copy already. So update, as I mentioned last time I came, we kind of were in the early, brainstorming phases looking. We have narrowed it down to 2 locations. They're both on the south side of town. One would be on as you're coming into Janesville, the exit ramps. One would be behind Casey's, and the other would be behind like Holly Lane. If you later look at an aerial map of town, it's quite a big area there. I believe it's like 70 acres on either side. Both of them are about the same size. So lots of room for growth. That was one when we were discussing, right now it's so landlocked, the school itself. And I liked your feedback about possibility of growing. And I was like, you're right, like you need that. And like, as we've learned with the school, there's like every inch is used on this block. So, yeah, both of those places we are looking at, and both landowners are open to it. So we're as far as that. We love that it would also be a beautiful billboard for our community, out there. And like I mentioned, there's plenty of room, there's space, there's access to 14 if we had commuting families and, or if you're hosting events and sports tournaments and things like that. So I just wanted to give you an update on the location. And then as you can see what we're looking at including in the building itself. So you have the library, the gym space. Above the gym is a walking track. And then also we have in there, as you can see, the pre-K and daycare area with also an indoor play area and meeting rooms. And we tried to be strategic about the placement of things, like, for example, kitchen and concessions would be open to also like a lobby. If we had seniors walking or using the gym, they could also have coffee, or if you had a tournament, you have access to concessions in an open area. I've been to many places where you're like, why would you put this over here? Things like that. We tried to like get feedback on things. It'd be like a very beautiful library that would be open to the public, the community, but then also could be used by the tenants in the building. And then as you can see, we have an outdoor play and indoor play because we live in Minnesota. And then you're also going to see, and I'll come back to this after discussing with, I wish Joni was here tonight because she was a member that got in the feedback when we met with ISG, and we talked about the fine arts needs in a stage. So we put a stage in here. And then you can see, I believe on your guys' copy, if you go to the third, you're going to see like other setups of the stage and how that would work. So we tried to be very mindful of how this space was used and the needs of our community right now. So before I go any further, do you guys have any questions right now? We applied for a grant last year to the state legislature for a capital bond, and we met the state representatives and senators came to City Hall here. We presented our project to them. They loved it. They thought Janesville they were impressed with what we had to offer and couldn't believe we didn't have one. And they asked where we normally have community things, and we said, here at our school. And they were shocked. So we had one for Mankato. We had the Faribault, like the Senator,
Jasinski.
Yes, Jasinski was there. And they were all very great. We also learned too that with that specific bond, that should be your last dollar. So they want to see that we have some matching things. Again, we were going into this blind. We're learning the process as we go. It was great to get in front of them. We met them all, learned how this process goes. They're kind of like, we love it. Come back. Basically told us come back again once you have some funds already committed and matched. And then it's a matching grant. So like, let's say right now we have an estimated cost for everything is like 25 million on this. So they're like, for example, if you get 12, we can, then come tell us what you have, the work you've done, and then, you can come to us with that type of thing. So that's kind of where we were at with that. So with that process, so we learned that. So that's like the funding. That's not what I'm here to talk to you about. But the part that I'm here to talk to you about is with this concept is one of the important pieces of it is the daycare, because Janesville itself has a huge lack of it right now. I can tell you firsthand, I have kids in daycare, I have kids one going into preschool, I have a kindergartner and like a grade school, so I'm in it right now. It's interesting, like, it's wild, like it's not there, and it's not in Janesville. There is other places, people are driving right now out, as you guys know that. And then there's, and also lack of housing. One thing I'm also pushing for with this project is if we could add in lots. Like, so if we put it, you know, on either side, could we add in lots? And that could help, obviously, fund, but then also there's some dead ends over here and over there that you could hook in and have access points. And right now we have, nobody's disagreed with anything we've put out there. So we're kind of at that point. Because even when I went to preschool sign up this spring, there was 3 families there that weren't even in our school. And they're like, we want to be here, but we need a house here and we need daycare here. And right now there's neither. And so it's like, oh, okay. You know, and one was in, you know, one was from Waterville, one was in Sika, and another one was just looking at moving here. So, I mean, it's real, you know, kind of thing. So that's interesting. But what I was looking and I spoke with Mr. Eller about is what if giving you guys, like, we're coming to you first, because that's what I would love to see in this building, is for community ed to move your programming, like the community ed program, to the community center. So like the community ed, JWP community ed would live there. And you would office out of there, like community ed director, and those preschool wrap around. And then also, like right now, my daughter goes to summer SAC, and it's like SAC could even move there. You could even move SAC off-site. They all bring their own lunch. They really have nothing to do with the building itself other than being in it right now. And sometimes I do feel like they're shuffling around because the teachers want to get into their new rooms and SAC's in there, you know, that kind of stuff. So that's another thing that could also be housed in there, and obviously that's part of community ed as well. But, and I think when we originally spoke to, we were looking at birth to 3, and I even met with the group and I asked them, would you be okay if I presented it to you guys and just saying, forget that. What if you just brought your program over there? You know, because I understand that the space and all that's a whole nother deal, and I wouldn't expect you to, I understand, you know, why we wouldn't want to maybe go down that path. So I was like, well, what if, would you be, and they said, yes, you know, we just want to see this program grow and this happen, kind of thing. So that's what we'd be looking at, or what I'm here tonight to discuss, or with you, is if you'd have any interest in doing that. So, or any reasons or things you want to ask me, or discussions, questions, concerns, excitement, opportunities.
Who's running the building?
So it would be city owned, and that's another thing that Mr. Eller and I discussed. And I said, I am just speaking on behalf and throwing out ideas, but what if, like, the community ed director, kind of like the school resource officer, was maybe shared with the city to have some value within, like, all of a sudden they became the community's community ed director, community center building, you know, director, the building director, or something like that, you know, something like that. I could see working. So that is up for, these are more questions that we need to have answered, yes, but that's what I would envision something like that being. I spoke with, like, St. Peter. They have a almost identical setup, and they have the same type of thing. Their community ed is ran through there. They have tenants like the daycare, and them lease it from the city. So,
And their community ed director is the one that runs everything?
yes, it's like the director there within the building. Because, you know, you would use, I mean, the community ed would be using all these spaces, I would envision, you know, the gyms and all that. And that's why I like that. We work hand in hand, especially in a smaller community like that too. They could manage all that. But it doesn't have to be that. It's just an idea, you know, that's something I could see happening.
When Gina and I talked, we talked about, like, they would oversee the facilities, like who's renting it, when, and whatnot, as part of their job as a community ed director.
If they, for example, they're saying, we have all of our preschool during the day and wrap around in these rooms, and then we have SAC using the gym during this time, but if so-and-so wants to rent it, like, they run it all through them, you know, type of thing. So they're managing the building itself, And then the library is Waseca LaSure Regional Library System. They would technically be a tenant within the building, and then they run their own library, you know, and handle that space.
What about like food and maintenance and cleaning and all
Mhm.
that? Who would do all that?
So that would be the city.
And they're prepared to
I mean,
hire people for that?
I mean,
or
we've
whatever.
discussed, you know, it probably, maybe, again, you know, that's the beauty of doing this from the ground up. You can kind of choose how you would set that up, whether it's like a maintenance person and like food, for example, nothing would be, you know, that's something you guys, it would be, since it would be through your community ed, would you bring meals over? There would be a kitchen there. That would be up to like how you service your programming, you know, for example. So there wouldn't be any necessarily food daily being made out of the city. So I guess I would envision it being like a maintenance person there from the staff of the city. And so I guess one thing I really liked about the concept is that you already have your programming in place. It's just having the space for it. And I know Jeremy mentioned that probably one of the biggest hangups right now is space. And I know everybody's nodding. I mean, I can even see it as a parent. Like, I've been coming here, and it's not what it used to look like. You can tell this is being used so much, you know, and more than just a media center. And same with even the wrestling room and the auditorium. And he said, like, for example, even when there's a play or the musical, I mean, elementary FIA is like, where are you gonna go? You know, that kind of stuff. And that's where we talked about this stage. You know, this is another option. This is an green space, play area, practices, like all the things. So.
I know, like, basically everyone in, like, the art department, like the theater side, granted, most of them will be out of school
Right.
before this, but I think everyone would say if they're asked what would you want to see changed in the fine arts program is getting a new stage or like actually having a stage. So then you can have bigger productions and have more with it and stuff like that, because it does feel very confined.
Very confined.
Yeah.
Yes. And then you're limited, and then the other students are limited,
Mhm.
and that's just not fair. You know, it's not fair to, I mean, and right now, even if you're, I always have a growth mindset on everything I like to do. I mean, right now, if you're barely sustaining, like, what does it look like in, you know, 5, 10 years? And if we were to even add on to our school here, there goes the green space. So that's the only option. So I just love, like, again, that feedback we went to over a year ago. There is opportunities out here, not just for now, but even someday. If there was a partnership, you know. That's the beauty of small town, small school, in my opinion. Like, you can work together on that stuff. So,
How big is the initial, like, this building in total?
like square footage.
Yeah.
Does it even-
Would you be looking to buy like 5 acres or something like that up front, or?
I think it would be even more than that.
More
Because
than-
again, like, yeah, you'd probably want more
Yeah,
like
parking.
20.
Parking,
Parking,
and
yeah.
outdoor
Yeah.
space.
And then, yeah, the outdoor. The
And
footprint itself probably is, you know, not, but like with parking and roadways and outdoor play.
And the city would plan, or their thoughts would be to run it for profit?
I think with something like this, I mean, you know, the project is so expensive. In my opinion, it's kind of ran more like a school, like you're maintaining your budget and you're just kind of maintaining, like, having the opportunity to have something like this in your community. I don't really think of it as like you know what I'm saying? It's more of like an event, like a host of other opportunities. Yeah. Because we even discussed, this is a whole nother thing, but like, you know, when you start bringing the community, like we all of a sudden had a community center and hooked on roads, and like then you obviously have a new spot for even an industrial, like offices and places for businesses to rent and things like that this could bring in. And then like another comment, like if we, for example, just giving you like some situation things that I experience as a mom too, is I've heard some kids say, I don't want to go to SAC because I don't want to be at school year round, you know? So there's just other things like that, that it could bring new scenery and places for our kids.
So when it comes to like the library and you have a tenant there, and then if you have the wraparound and the preschool and stuff like that, when there's actual, you know, other than the general maintenance and cleaning stuff by the city employee, but if there's substantial stuff that needs to be done, then what are you looking at that way? Is it, you know, the city funded? Is it, you know?
As far as to the building, or
Mhm.
like, let's say they're like infrastructure things? Yeah, that would be a city.
All
No
city.
different than like if you would rent an apartment, right?
Mhm.
If you're a tenant there, you know, if you're leasing a space. That's how I view it, I guess. Mhm.
Golf course, they're responsible for it.
Right, yeah, like if a kid got, you know,
Right.
painted the wall or something. Yeah,
And
yeah,
again, as far as fees, I'm sure they'd like to try and offset as much as they can.
yeah,
You know, if somebody wanted to host a basketball tournament,
Yep.
I'm sure they
Yes.
would charge for that.
yes. That's
And-
another thing I like to add is like St. Peter, like there's meeting rooms here. I was just looking at their fee schedule, you
Right.
know, and they had, yeah, if you rented a room, this is what it is. If you rent the courts, if you, yeah, hosted a tournament and all that type of stuff is all rented out. So yeah, you're just a host. The city would be a host. That's how I view it.
What type of, like with all these pre-K and daycares, like
Mhm.
how many, do we know like how many people kids that could house? Based off that size? Do we have those numbers?
Not off the top of my head, no.
I think what they were telling us, we're setting it up, because you have 3 preschool rooms right now, correct?
2,
2 plus a wraparound?
plus wraparound.
Right. So again, they did, well, let's do 4.
Mhm.
And then that was, I think, even 2 when it was initially discussed like a, more of a birth to 3 for that large daycare area. So I'm not sure, you know, what sure, but they had the ratio when they did it, because they did it correctly. What each classroom could hold.
Right, with ISG drawing this up, they would know what the ratios have to be for their students.
Yeah.
That
Like,
would be huge.
like off the top of my head, I want to say it was like 30 per classroom.
Wow.
And then the large one is like up to 80 based on the ratio of square foot to kids.
I think it's a great idea. We all know it's needed. Everybody's going out of town. And some of them are getting older in their profession to probably not have daycares anymore, or soon.
I mean, my provider is over 60,
Yeah.
you know.
I think everything is great. My big hesitancy is the city running it. I'm just gonna be honest with that, because it still has to be run like a business, and I just wanna make sure that we're not gonna lose money on it, that we, yeah, so that's just my biggest concern.
Mm-hmm.
So,
But you're not suggesting a school run it.
no.
Yeah. I mean,
Right.
in every community, the city owns the community center.
Yes.
Very, very few times is it a for-profit, private. And again, towns bigger than us, smaller than us have community centers. Some lose money, some make money. You know, it's just, again, I think, Gina, you would say it's really a basic necessity that the town needs as it's getting to be the size that it is. I don't disagree that it'll always be interesting to see how well those things are run, but, and
I
we've
just
seen
have
some
to-
in.
It has to be very, like, yeah,
But
I
too,
don't-
you, when you say running,
Yep.
yeah.
I guess you think of it as like, again, like a landlord. You know, because really it's up, it's you guys just, it would be, they would just own it, is really the only difference. It's not like they're running your programming.
No.
Yeah, it has nothing to do with that. And like you said, it's very common for any community center building to be set up this way. I would just love to see the community out there versus a private, because like I'm stopping here because if you don't see a need or have no interest, then we would find a private to come in, you know? And I just think this is a wonderful feeder program, and it has a lot of value beyond just having it's not even just the preschool living there, it's what comes with it, I think is a huge value that I see.
No, I don't disagree. I don't know, Jeremy, have you talked to any other superintendents that have any types of connections like
No.
these, like because I don't know that our current position is prepared to do something like this. I mean, this is gonna be big, so it would add a lot more responsibility onto that person and stuff, so.
Under the community ed.
Yeah,
Yeah, but it would also become a totally different position.
yes, it would.
All of a sudden, you're an executive level position, not
Yeah.
just a
Right.
running community ed.
Right,
So
right.
it could be $100,000 position.
Yeah,
Correct.
Where now it's a whatever position, and then you could afford to have, so I mean, it would be totally different than.
but then we're paying for that as a school district then, so.
Yeah, but we're
that's-
also bringing
we
in
have
more
to-
revenue
Yeah,
based
no,
off
I get
that.
that, yeah.
And-
It's just,
And-
this is stuff we have to talk about and think
Yes.
about, I'm just saying, we
You're
have to
just-
have that all in place.
Although we wouldn't necessarily pay more, just because they're doing a larger role doesn't mean we're gonna pay for all that.
Because that's
In
why I
fact, one-
recommended.
One would argue that we'd only pay for half of their position,
So the city would pay for the other.
That's what,
because they
like,
need
we're
somebody to run the community
correct.
center.
That's what we were saying about that position could be shared,
Mhm.
and that's
It
where
would
that,
be.
you guys would have value in it because, and then so would the city, so, like your school resource officer, where you work together.
But who would ultimately be over this person?
Exactly, so
City
You-
administrator.
determining
Well, just be the same.
if
It
they're
would be
charging
city.
It'd be the
enough,
same.
if they're charging enough for the pre-K, if they're charging enough for renting the library, if they're charging enough to rent out the spaces, I mean, who ultimately is going to be over that part with the final decision?
City,
The city,
Yeah.
by far,
yes. But the preschool is all, you guys determine your rates and
We're a
everything.
tenant, right?
because we're just a
So
Because you're
tenant.
just running your
Rents
business
and-
there, or, your programming.
So as long as we set our prices appropriately, pay for our rent and anything else, the positions that are staffed.
Yeah, so one of the big questions that Gina brought up is, would moving anything out there allow us to not have to build? Or, could that create something that we're saving? And as she said, not eating up parking lot or whatever. I think that's the biggest opportunity is offloading something, help us run what ultimately we're supposed to run, and that is an educational institution.
I think my answer to that question is yes. It creates more space for us here within our own building to be able to do that. Because right now, we're talking about, when you're talking about SAC and wraparound and 2 preschool rooms, you're talking, they take gym space, they take common space, they're out on playgrounds. And plus, they have 3 classrooms that we could use for other purposes. So,
Which I think that could be the most exciting opportunity for us, is being able to, grab some of that back again.
right,
At the same time, again, the whole idea of a small community is that you do have to find it can't just be a community center with no school involvement and expect it to be busy enough all the time to
100%.
support it.
Give them revenue.
Agree.
Correct.
right.
What about
Concert.
Your school
busing?
has to be involved.
Yeah.
Are we needing to bus back and forth all day, or?
The
what would that
only
be like?
busing, thinking about it, depending on how the lunch program is ran, the busing would be, beginning of the day and end of the day, where there'd be a bus that would go from there to the school for those SAC students. And at the end of the day, they would drop SAC students back off there.
Oh, okay, because then they would get on their respective buses for
Yep.
the, okay. So that would increase a little.
And there already is a
Not a lot.
bus stop at the corner of Holly and Main Street, so.
So then even as us, as a tenant, you're saying that just by us having our community ed in there, that would be almost like our lease fee, that we would not get charged to be there?
I'm saying that was just one idea. I
One
brought up.
idea?
Like, that's an idea.
Mhm.
And we would obviously have to figure out what the cost would be and
Right.
things. But, you know, I guess more too, I was gauging level of interest at this point in
Mhm.
answering these types of questions,
Yeah.
yeah.
So, correct me if I'm wrong, but SAC is all the way up through 6th grade, correct?
Can be through 6.
Can be
Typically,
through-
students, you get a few 4th and 5th grade students, but typically it's pre-K through 3.
Okay. So, maybe I was listening wrong or whatever, but you said the daycare would be like 0 to 3, and then you have the pre-K. Where would that leave, like?
No,
The
we decided it would just be nothing would change with the programming that we
Oh.
currently have. Yeah, or that,
Okay. It'd just be a different space and all that?
yes, different
Okay,
space.
gotcha.
yes.
Originally, we talked about birth
discussed it.
infants, and we've, for the lack of better terms, we've exited that idea.
Okay.
Running infant care is very expensive.
Gotcha. Alright.
So just walking through, you know, some scenarios, let's just say that we're not interested in doing some of these things. Again, the community center will continue to move forward. Some larger entity will bring in a private daycare, run out of there, which the city might actually come out ahead doing that. But now you've lost the partnership. It will siphon kids away from us, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. But now if you have half the kids, but you really still need about the same amount of employees and staff, what have we gained by
Yeah.
not participating? You know,
No, yeah.
because they're gonna do it no matter what. And there will be outside entities that will be interested in coming in and running it.
I don't disagree, I just think, like, talking to other superintendents to see what pain points there were with that and stuff, and that partnership, and making sure that's solid before we, I just don't wanna miss anything. that-
Sure. So I think right now you're just looking for a general consensus of,
Because,
do we foresee a partnership or not?
yes, because, like Kevin said, we would keep moving forward. And then this is one of the big hangups here. Who's gonna fill this? And then we need to know that. And if it's a school, wonderful. Then we carry on, you know, and then we discuss details. If it's not, we need to move on to something else. So, yeah. And I also was telling Mr. Eller too, I go, you know, too, I'm not trying to rush you, but at the same time, we also need to kind of have this question answered, you know, and know that there is either commitment or not commitment and where we stand. And
Yeah.
so, yeah.
What's the estimated timeline or thinking about this building? Do we have, I mean, I know it'll change, but, like, do we kinda have an idea of when?
I think that's where I'm trying to get these questions answered,
Okay,
you
yeah,
know?
yeah.
Like, once we know some of these things, then you can start moving.
Yeah.
Yeah, really moving,
But probably a completion in 2026.
probably.
Thinking completion of the building?
Mhm.
Or 7.
Or 7.
Yeah, I
halfway
think
through
you're, I think
24.
you're 3 to 5 years out on the building. You've still got.
I guess I
27
didn't know how
months away.
quickly they'd raise $13
Well,
million.
Yeah, I don't know.
I kind of made the assumption they'd raise it quickly,
Yeah.
but you're right. If they can't raise the money
I mean-
quickly, then sure, it becomes 27. I get, sorry.
Yeah.
I kind of made the assumption they
No,
would raise
no.
money quickly.
And like I said, I've never done this before, so I couldn't tell you. You know, I know these are large-scale things that you have to have a lot of boxes checked. But, that's why we're here tonight, 'cause
What are some of the other questions that you're kind of waiting on answers for? The library's committed to it, or?
they are committed.
Okay.
Mhm. Yeah.
What are they gonna do with the current library, have they said?
I think there's some things been thrown out there, but I'm not sure. You know,
Okay.
again, this has to happen.
Yeah, I
Mhm.
was just curious.
Right, so it's all those things.
Does this go to a vote to make it official, or is it just more of like?
I don't think we need to be official on it.
I don't either. I
Just
think it's
expressing
just
an interest.
expressing interest that,
I think in order for something like this to happen in a town our size, there has to be collaboration. For them to totally do it on their own with no interaction, I think would be pretty difficult.
And especially if they make the daycare and pre-K stuff private, then it's a split between half families are coming here, half families are going there.
Well, you know,
Right.
too, I guess, I just view this as a wonderful feeder program for our school. And
Yes.
it really makes a statement for young families to come in and show that we're investing in our schools and our community with something like this. And, I forgot what I was even gonna say else with it.
Keep
But-
thinking.
Yep,
But as we, if we can increase class sizes, I mean, we're going into a lot of years of upper 40s, lower 50s. Those aren't real big classes. So we've got to be looking that 5 and 10 years out to continue to be building opportunities of why people come here. I also think it'll make raising money for them a lot easier when they have support from other groups like ours. Again, John Jasinski would go, oh, you've got the school doing this? Yep, it just will make the whole package much more impressive.
I know what
Agreed.
thank you, I thought of it now. It's just, I guess I'm saying too, like, if you didn't, let's say you guys, if you didn't, like, and you're, questioning, like, there's extra cost and stuff, like, what would it cost, if you were to add on to the school or invest in other ways, like, and just, I can't even imagine what some of those numbers would be from your standpoint, when you think of your budget. So I think of, a monthly expense of a lease for something as beautiful as this. And if you also would think of it too, you would have, thousands of dollars per month for a multi-million-dollar facility. Like, so even spread out over however many years, I guess is minimal as far as like when I think of a business investment.
And I don't disagree with this, I totally
Yes.
agree with this, but I just wanna make sure that if we're gonna free up all these rooms and we're gonna go that way, that we don't, that we're looking at the overall picture, that by doing this, we didn't cause more expenses going that way versus, keeping in-house. I just wanna
Sure.
look at the,
Things you
the
didn't think
bigger
of
picture, yes.
that came up and you're like, I didn't think of that part.
Yes, because there's still so many unknowns as well. Just to make sure that by doing that, it doesn't make the program upside down or, anything that way either, so.
And having a facility like this to use may make the program more successful too, and be able to add
Possibly.
new
Absolutely.
programs to
I
it.
I can tell you this right now, we have 2 classrooms, and looking at our numbers right now, we have a waiting list for a 3-year-old preschool class.
I think I did know
Because we
that,
don't
but I
have
didn't
enough
wanna say
space.
that- I thought there was a waiting list for preschool, so like, what does that tell you?
Right.
And if you turned away somebody now, why would they ever come back?
Right.
Yep.
And that's like a shame. Yeah.
Can I add one thing?
Yep.
So doing economic impact studies by bringing businesses into towns or facilities like this into towns, every single one of them will tell you the same thing. Towns, especially small towns, cannot grow without daycare centers.
Right.
Because otherwise people are gonna stay in Mankato, they're gonna stay in Waseca, and that's just the way it's gonna be, because that's where the facilities are. However, the other side of this is that as you draw more people in, you have to have room for buildings and houses and things like this, and this is 5-10 years down the road, but that's going to expand the needs of the school as well, as far as space goes. I mean, I need 2 classrooms right now as it is, so I'm all for this. I don't need them both, but daycares go hand in hand with the growth of the community. They're just inextricably tied.
I'm curious if our school were to like be a tenant to like this part of it, would there like, how do I word this? Like, would it not necessarily be like a Janesville, Waldorf, Pemberton community center?
Right.
Or like a Janesville community center that is still open and able to be used by those other 2 smaller towns and all of that?
Yes, because it's City of Janesville owned.
Yep.
So it'd be the Janesville Community Center, and then, for example, JWP Community Education would be one tenant in here, and then the library is another, so,
Okay.
yes.
But
Mhm.
anybody
You
could
personally
get a
go to St.
membership.
Peter or Lake Crystal and use theirs.
Yeah,
Okay.
You
anybody,
could host them, you could
Yes.
rent a
Yep.
room in Or gym space, so
Yes.
their aquatic space.
Or like, for example, aren't you in Boy Scouts too?
Yeah.
Yeah, like, I know even, because I've been on councils, mentioned like you could meet here,
Okay.
you know, for example, in one of your meeting rooms. So-
Okay.
But I'm assuming they're gonna have memberships and, right?
Well, I mean, how this setup is, there's really, because what would you have a
No.
membership for?
Oh,
Walking track.
okay, maybe not then.
You could do a walking track if they did, you know, like those silver sneaker programs or something like that, yeah, track.
Okay.
But there's not currently like a cardio
Yeah,
weight room
true.
that you'd want a gym membership to. That's not
But
quite
like,
the way
for
this is.
example, St. Peter has open gym through community ed, which you pay for.
So
Right.
the library rent would help pay for it and this,
Our rent.
And anytime you're at the facility.
yeah,
Yeah.
the,
Basketball tournament,
Yep.
hee-haw,
Yeah.
if hee-haw went there, they would pay
Yep.
to rent the stage in the area. You know, there's a whole fee schedule, like you said,
Yes.
for St. Peter, that you wanna have a graduation there, you wanna have,
You could
Right.
rent a room.
celebrate
I mean, for
Trinity.
example, we
you
set
know,
that up. Yeah, you wanna have graduation party there, you can set it up, and then you have access to a kitchen, and, you know, or a retirement party, or a reunion, or things like that.
Bulldog bingo.
You could have, exactly, backers.
Backers bingo, sorry.
Yeah.
Very good.
Paydays could be indoors, Laura.
Yeah. Put the tent in the outdoor playground.
that in there.
5K on the walking track.
Oh my gosh, it'd be
Well, you
such
know,
a
you have options.
mess.
If it rains, you have the
Yeah.
5K inside.
Just take
Well,
your
it
shoes
would be,
off.
it would actually be nice for the beanbag tournaments, cause my dad had throw all his beanbags away this year, cause they all got wet.
See what I'm saying? This
Yep.
is a need. But you know, like, for example, it was like, for the community center, we had a meeting and City Hall was unavailable. There was nowhere to meet. You know, as you guys know, but,
So our position would be interested, you're gonna go back, try to find other superintendents.
Yep.
is there any other questions you would have for me to look for answers on?
Well, again, every time you get closer to something, more details can be arranged. For now, I mean, you're just hearing general support
Yep,
that we envision
Good.
wanting to be a part of what you're doing. We just don't know all the details yet, and I
Yep.
think
Right.
that's okay.
I think it's okay.
But
That's how I
you-
feel about it.
You still hear support from us.
Good,
Great job. Keep
Definitely.
moving forward. We're here to support.
I appreciate that. Well, thank
Yes.
you guys.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is definitely.
Thanks for all your work.
Yeah, it is,
Do you
yeah.
want these back?
No, just, well, maybe I will, you know, you never know. Just
Yeah.
wait for it to.
Yep.
I have a copy of it if anybody needs
Yeah,
to
if you,
reference it in the
or I
future.
can, yeah.
It's somewhere in my new office,
Where's your new office?
where Annika's used to be.
Who got yours?
Annika and Wendy.
and,
Oh, joint.
And Francis.
yeah. It's nice, you should look at it.
I gotta look at my dad.
It's like a little home.
It's probably already disgusting.
Where's Mike's?
Where Casey's used to be.
Thank you, Gina.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks, guys.
Gina, I'll let you know when I have answers.
Okay. Do you know who you're gonna talk to?
I have an idea.
Okay.
All right, moving on to 8F that we added.
Yep.
Lunchtime solutions, we have Brian here. Gonna grab a microphone, or you can sit down and use the,
I have been sitting down all day, so, yes, hi, I'd like to introduce myself. I'm Brian Wright. I am the area director for Lunchtime Solutions, and I will be overseeing the Janesville schools. Little background, I am coming up on, I just figured it out this year, nearly 15 years in the industry, and it's all been with Lunchtime Solutions. I started as the food service director for Zimbrota Mazeppa schools, and their principal went on to be the superintendent in Lake City, so then he brought me with, and then his vice principal became the superintendent on the Wabash Kellogg, and they brought me with, and pretty soon my bosses just said, we probably better give you like 30 schools. So I have about 33 kitchens right now. So anyways, just real quickly, just to give you kind of an update. When your previous company left, we did have a meeting with the staff that was, then invited everyone to have the opportunity to come back. We do have roughly, I think I counted, there's gonna be about 4 staff members that were coming back from there, but I have already hired almost every position. We only have actually 1 position truly left, one that's not filled yet, but is semi-spoken for. And we have the food service director position yet to fill. However, Wednesday and Thursday will be our final 3 candidates that we will be interviewing. Then when we get to that point and make a decision on the 1 candidate, we will be actually having that candidate meet with the district here. So, and allowing them to have an opportunity and to say with that particular person. So we're close. All your equipment's working. I'm ready to go with that. We're already set up with a lot of the programs that we need. We've got all of our vendors lined up. We have signs ready to be hung whenever it's time. It's menus are complete. I mean, we're kind of ready, and I really have only been at this for 2 weeks. So,
I don't, yeah.
but this will be my 8th school district that I have opened, so. Is there any questions that you might have for me?
Is anybody from the school on your interview committee for the director?
Is there, so what we're doing is we have to wade through. We had 7 candidates apply, and we've weighted it down to 3.
Okay.
And those 3 will go through the interview process, and then we will present to you our choice. And we're looking for someone who has experience. It's very important to me, just as a background in how I work and how I think about the whole kitchen, is the best way to explain me is when I took over Zumbrota Mazeppa, it's 1,200 students, K-12. It took me 2 months, and I knew every single student by name. It was important for me to know them by name. It was important for me to be able to interact with the students. It was important for me to come up with promotions. We want to interact. We want to have a welcoming, we really want it to be welcoming for the students. So when they walk in, they're going to feel very comfortable. They're going to look forward to coming down to lunch. They will be there. And that would be what I'm looking for from our director, is to have someone who is that personable, who's willing to put on promotions, who's willing to be out there. For instance, as a director myself with Zumbrota, for instance, I got together with the student council. We got going. We figured it out. I did all the work. I figured out how to get a large grill. I figured out how to get donations from Hy-Vee, Coca-Cola, the local meat place, everything else like that. And we set up an outdoor tailgate that happened before the homecoming game. And that was completely there. The whole community invited. We had tables. We had the FFA out doing buffalo chip checkers, and we had the volleyball team painting hair. We had face painting. We were selling old uniforms. We were doing all sorts of things like that. So Zumbrota, if you know, is about 3,500 people when you include Mazeppa. We got to the point where it was growing so much that we were actually inviting the visiting team to come too. So in year 7 of me doing that, we did 3,800 people at $6 a plate. Now, as the school board, you're gonna put in a hard night because you're gonna be there helping me because I can't do it all. No, no. But that was something that we did also as an opportunity for the school board to be out with the community too. They happen to do that. That's not, you know, that's completely up to how you want to. But we want to do that. I've already explained to the other staff that if it's Dr. Seuss's birthday, let's dress up like Cat in the Hat. If it is, you know, so those are the things that I want to do. I can tell you that One of our applicants is already, she is 4 years of running community and technical colleges food service, which is roughly same number of students, but it's obviously much more varied than what a school lunch service might be, but very exciting. The other candidates that we have are also very exciting. So I'm happy with how this is going. I mean, I have walked into districts in the past where we wanted to get everything started up, and we were 3 days before school thinking, I don't even have anybody in this other school building right now because of the difficulties in hiring. So I think the positivity is there. I think the positivity for having a good program, I think the positivity for trying to make differences with what you're looking for, having the students involved, and hoping I can keep up on Long John Wednesdays. It's really something I can tell you, because that's gonna be a day. I think it's almost 400 Long Johns every Wednesday. Yeah, so I'm looking forward to the icing. So, anything else that I can help with? Yeah.
So food service director is a direct report to you.
Yes. Mhm.
So what, when you're managing 33 food service directors, how often are you checking in with? Just curious what that relationship looks like as far as,
So I do have 33 buildings. I have 9 direct report directors.
okay,
Okay. And so the way that works is I am scheduled, or I have scheduled myself to be about once a month in each one of my locations. But as this goes, you'll find like the first few weeks, I'll be up here
Sure.
a lot more. I will be responsible for all of the training of the new directors. I am responsible for overseeing building your budgets for the upcoming school years. I am responsible for maintaining the KPIs, maintaining all of our costs, everything. So I do all of those reviews. So the director will be in contact with me. We actually have one-on-one meetings every week also. So that would be kind of the case. And not to mention, I live in Sioux Falls. I have a granddaughter in St. Paul. It's halfway. I'm gonna be here a lot more. So that, that's very exciting for me as well. So that's really the best way to put it. Now, also, most of the districts and food service directors that I have are actually in and around Sioux Falls. So that means I can do a day trip for them.
sure.
So when I'm up here overnight, it's gonna be an overnight. It'll probably be multiple days. So, yeah.
I find it funny that you brought up the tailgate thing for like homecoming stuff, because at the student council's end of year meeting, we were talking about doing something like that. So if you plan it, our student council would be more than willing to help out.
You're gonna help me.
I was gonna say,
More than willing.
You're not settling this off on me already. No, but actually, yes, that's kind of the idea, and the goal for us would be to do that. As the director, that's what I did. Made it hard because I was also one of their football coaches. So that made it hard for me to kind of bounce back and forth, but that was, it's definitely something to do.
Yeah,
It's a great idea. It's a great fundraiser, because the rules on fundraising in schools are getting more and more difficult, especially when it comes to food and the ability to just sell food in schools. So, yeah, absolutely. I mean,
and we have a lot of students that are part of like student council and NHS and FCCLA, FFA and all that. So we could get a huge group of like the top leaders, like highest academic people at our school to help out with that as well.
Yep, and I can tell you that it's actually not too hard to do. We did have the buy-in of the counselor, right? The person that oversaw the student council. So I wouldn't necessarily say counselor, but we did have that buy-in. And that helped also there, because then when the students were in class or having their meetings, they were able to do that. Now, also for your students, if you aren't aware, they do have the opportunity to have input to the program. In October, you will see that the students are going to get a survey. It's fairly extensive. Then also, we will be working with you as a school to set up what's called a food service advisory council, where we'll bring students in, but that will also include a board member. It'll include administration, it'll include parents. Obviously, we don't want to make it 35 people, but if there's a couple, 3 people from every area, or just even a couple people, that will also be a way that we go, because we have those meetings, we'll have those in October and March. They are required, but it is a way for us to get even more feedback. A lot of times it will happen over the lunch hour, so you'll be eating with us, things like that. So we continue to move forward. There are things that we're asking. We've talked about some of the a la carte stuff already. We've talked about what we want to do on Fridays with pizzas, and we're going to do homemade pizzas. Exploring some other options for branded pizza too on Fridays. So all of those things are on the table for us to try and create excitement, as well as it's hard to differentiate, I guess, you know, to change up your program every day when they're gonna, every time you turn around, the government says, hey, you know what, we're gonna cut back on sodium this year. So, that happens. So we do our best, and we've got some, I don't know, you're gonna have to get used to trying a pizza hot dog for me this year, all right? Okay. Anything else I can?
So you said you had the menu already figured out?
There is,
Or-
well, with the proposals, right, when we did the proposal, there was a menu that was included in that proposal. That's a 21-day menu, it's required. It's done. We noticed that there were a couple mistakes, whatever, that we had to fix, which that just is in writing. We just get that fixed and present that to the state. We can't make any changes beyond that right now, okay? So that first 21 days is set. After that, the menu is set up, it's called a 5-week cycle. So it's every 5 weeks, it's gonna rotate. But in these menus, we're gonna feature different entrees. We're going to feature, like when we get around Christmas, right? We're going to have a holiday meal. When we get to that holiday meal, or Thanksgiving, it's going to have the scalloped potatoes, the green bean casseroles, the dinner rolls, we're going to make it an actual true holiday meal. We are, like I said, then it's gonna go every 5 weeks, and that kind of comes back to a repeat. But we have a promotional schedule that will fall in there where we can do that. So if it's National Hot Dog Day, we can make some adjustments. If it's the Super Bowl, we can find a way to do soup. Or if it's, so those are all the things that we have, and we have 107 promotional opportunities. I don't know if I can get them all done in 1 year, but we'll try. But we do have those things there that we can actually make everyone at least excited about, and try and change it up. And so, and if there are so for instance, with your FACS class, right? Let's say in FACS, they're messing around with it a little bit, and they come up with a recipe for a pizza that they really love. If they bring it to me and I work with them on it, or if they bring it to us, we can maybe find that as an eventual recipe for the students. If the students want to be involved in creating a meal for the other students, absolutely, we can work on that. We can work on things like, with the younger students, the little ones, you take a 2-liter bottle and you cut out the top edge of it and you use strings to hang it. You can actually hang it, I'm sure Mike will love it, but we could hang them from on the walls so that there's multiple of those bottles hanging down. They'll have dirt in it, like each one of the little ones gets to put their tomato seed in it and put some water in and grow a tomato plant or start a tomato plant, or actually talking about your community center, community gardens, right?
Sure.
If she's got the room out there and that's something that you choose to do, you can have community gardens, we can have students growing, especially the little ones, growing and picking their own stuff. I mean, that's pretty cool, so. Anything else?
In your proposal, did you have a vending machine that sold sandwiches for like athletes or those kind of things? Is that something?
There's not a vending machine portion to that, but we do have a program that's easy to do. It's a flyer that we will make it a point to have for the coaches. And then the students can go in and say, all right, we're gonna be leaving right after school, love to have some chow, and they can pick. So they'll have a type of sub that they can pick, chips, cookie, apple, oranges, drink. They have to pay for it a la carte. It's not a reimbursable meal, so they have to pay for it extra. But we can have those made in a cooler, so when they're ready to hop on the bus, they come grab them, you know, whether it's one person or whoever, and they can take it with. It's the same thing with sack lunches for field trips. We can do those types of things. Even if she was talking about moving the students over to community center, that's a CACFP, very easy for us to just make the meals, make sure they're ready to go, put them in a warmer, and then somebody from maybe community ed comes, picks them up, takes them over, feeds the kids over there, brings them back, or depending on how they want to handle that. That's just a phone call in the morning. That's really not hard to do.
So the athlete stuff, can that still run through food service as far as like paying for it? It could go onto their account?
They can put it right on their account.
And are there any restrictions on, you know, salt or amount of meat on a sandwich for
So
those type of things?
Surprisingly enough, it's really not. We would be using the same products that we're serving the
Sure.
kids during the course of the day. We would have to do that only because if we run it through the food service account, it's considered smart snack. So it's gotta be smart snack compliant, and what that means is anything that we sell outside of the regular lunch has to be within smart snack guidelines, which is a whole nother fun thing. So that's, you know, but that is something that can be done. Now, we can, but again, so now it's, since it's a la carte, though, they can, the athletes can add the chips. They can have 2 chips if they want. They can have a banana, they can have apples. They can have all of that they need. So happy to do that. And we put that together, and I could maybe have that by tomorrow morning. I got nothing else to do. So, but there is that, and then I could probably put that in that school start letter if you'd like.
Sure.
Okay. So we have a school start letter that we can include that can go out to all the families before school starts, and I can put that in there about the athletes.
Yeah, I think we'd have a real interest, because that's again, a small school. We travel long distances,
Yeah.
leaving very early, so it'd be great if
Yeah.
we could find a way to get food on there.
I did. I like to kind of meander around, so I went in and saw the schools in your conference.
Yeah.
Familiar with Kenyon, Wanamingo, and those guys.
It's getting harder to find parents that want to butter, 80 sandwiches.
Yeah, that's true, and, I mean, if that's even something that if you have your booster clubs are looking to do, it doesn't really hurt us
Sure.
to make the lasagna, to make the whatever it is,
Yeah.
the NHS meals, those. So, and if it takes it off of the parents, we'll be happy to do that. It's just a straight catering, so.
Yep.
Yep.
For like field trips, like
Uh-huh.
I know our history teacher likes to bring at least the 9 through 12s on a history field trip that spans throughout the whole entire day.
Yeah.
Would there be something where instead of some people not wanting to bring their own lunch, they could get like a free lunch from the school as well?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep, I mean, it's run by the guidelines, of course, the
Mhm.
federal government has specific guidelines, but we can put together lunches. The thing is,
Yeah.
you're gonna have to help them haul a bunch of coolers, because we're gonna try to include milk and everything else like
Yeah.
that. But, yeah, it's
Okay.
another thing that we can do. There's options for us to keep feeding you.
Mhm.
Now, if it's on weekends or at night, I'm not coming in. Okay? Sorry.
It's your
not
job,
happening.
Eric.
I'm just making sure, like, if, instead of like the à la carte stuff where they would have to buy separate
Or
things, you know.
stopping at Subway
you
or
know,
wherever all the time.
Exactly. So-
Understood, yep, understood. Well, if he likes taking you to historical places, ask him to take you to Pipestone National Monument, right along Highway 30 over just west of Mankato. Cool as heck. One of the neatest places. Or even, what's it called? It's in Garrettson, South Dakota. There's a gulch that's there. And it's where Jesse James jumped his horses over this gulch to get away from the authorities. Water 600 feet deep below it.
On his way to Northfield.
Yep. So anyways,
How many, how many employees do you have, are planning for in?
for here,
Yep.
we have budgeted for 9, so, yeah, and that would count and include your food service director. So you will have a food service director and a kitchen manager, both in place, both will be able to order food, both will be able to manage the team in the kitchen, all of that. Food service director will handle the financials, so.
How many employees did we have this last school year?
6, 7?
Okay.
So one of the things that you find with school food service, and it's endemic all the way around, is you could have 9 tomorrow, and the next day have 3. Okay, it's endemic, it's the way that it goes, but we do have, the one nice part is we do have a recruiting group that's, I mean, literally a recruiter, that's all she does, is helps us recruit. You have myself, you have my food service directors, everything. So for instance, even for preparing the Janesville district for opening up with lunchtime, I have 3 of my food service directors that I have trained are actually putting together a lot of your papers and stuff. So they already are, we're training them to be able to do what I do.
Okay.
So if they're good enough to take my job, cool, I'm retiring. So that's kind of where I'm at.
Did we ever go over concerns, the reasons why we left with them? Left Tahoe?
Yeah.
We're pretty familiar with those reasons, as far as I think you've had a lot of conversation with Susan Gracie.
Yep.
It's been around. Yeah, she got a ton more energy than me. So anyways, she has been able to pass a lot of that along. We're familiar with how that particular group operates. This year alone, we took 5 of their schools. So,
So kind of going back to my original question on top of that is, can we have somebody on the interview committee from our school district? Or is that not allowed?
I mean, it's completely up. I know I had talked to Jeremy about it a little bit here, and Wendy a little bit about being on that, so that they would be able to
Okay.
make sure that somebody is going to fit what your district looks like.
So the final 3, there will be somebody
We'll find
from
those.
our,
So what we'll do is we're gonna take those final 3, what we do now, okay, they've already done their initial, which is experience, background, do you qualify, all of those. That was all done by myself, along with recruiting. This next interview process that we're gonna go through is called core values. And when we talk about that, it's gonna be, who are you as a person? If you remember how I talked about who I am, and what I like, that's gonna be the same thing, So then we'll take those 3 and we're gonna submit, we'll submit top 1 first, right? For someone to kind of talk through and talk with them. Then we would submit second or third. If it's just not working, we'll work down that hierarchy, but we're not gonna submit all 3 right off the bat, if that makes sense.
Who are you submitting them to?
No, I guess I don't understand that.
So when you're submitting your top
When I-
candidate, are you submitting your top candidate to us?
Yes,
Yes.
to Wendy and I.
For
Yep.
final.
Oh, so then
For
you
final-
do
Yeah,
like
for
an
final
initial
approval.
interview, and then if you say no, then you go to the next one?
Yes,
Okay.
yes, I'm sorry. I could
Yeah,
I could talk all night and make it harder.
I'm not involved in HR, so I don't know.
Yeah.
That's not how I've ever done any interviews, so
Sure.
it's more, yeah,
Yep.
okay.
Absolutely. We're gonna try to do that so that we take, I mean, you're paying us to make these decisions too, so we're
Yep,
gonna
I
try
get
to make
it.
them as easy as we can for you.
Yep, yep,
So, absolutely.
okay. I just wanted to make sure somebody was involved from our side too,
So
so.
does anybody wanna ask me another question so I can talk for 20 minutes, or should I let you get on? So I went through my bag. I have exactly 7 cards. I'll leave them here. I'm terrible at bringing them. I brought all the recruiting cards with the, hey, for staff. So I'm gonna set them down here, and you can pass them around. I'll have more with me the next time I'm back up. Okay?
Okay.
Thank
Thank
you,
you.
guys.
Thank you,
Thank you,
nice
Brian.
meeting you.
Yeah, nice meeting you all.
All right. Moving on
You
to the
you don't have to
consent-
stay for the entire meeting on our account. You
Yeah.
will not be offended.
I'm headed back to the hotel, so, yeah.
Just saying,
It's totally up to you.
just saying.
Have a safe drive.
Thank you, guys.
So moving on to the consent agenda.
I would move to approve the consent agenda.
I'll second.
Okay,
They're fighting over who.
go ahead.
So a motion by Kevin Bourne, seconded by Laura Size. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, say nay. Motion carries 5-0. Strategic plan progress, do you have anything to report on
I
that?
do, I've been doing some work with Sherry, and this is a layout of how we're going to and when we're going to get to our goals. So for student achievement, or student growth, achievement, and support, when we're doing, the learning work, when we're implementing the work, and making the change readiness happen, and then when it's standard work for us. We have it laid out as a 3-year, over 3 years, however, we know it's a 3 to 5 year plan. So my next step in this, and these are the 4 categories that are laid out, my next step is now I'm working with my direct reports to designate who's in charge of these and create a SMART goal for each one of these for each year. So I'll be reporting that as I have those goals, as we create those goals.
Speaking of goals, did you send?
No, I haven't yet.
Okay.
I was gonna bring that up.
Because I forgot again.
No, I was gonna bring it up at the meeting.
Okay.
And I can do that at the end too.
So you'll be hearing more and more about the strategic plan information. Now I gotta go back to the agenda there.
So what Laura's referring to is if everybody could give me their goals for the next superintendent evaluation of what the goals to work on.
That's not me, is it?
No.
You wanna do mine?
Okay, so on to old business. Any questions on that? Okay, on to old business, the weighted grade discussion.
Okay, this discussion came up in our policy or our
Curriculum.
curriculum and instruction meeting, and then came up again in policy committee meeting. So I did ask Mr. Rysdam to be here tonight to So he can hear what the board has to say about it, and they can hear what he has to say about it, and I'm not playing the middle person. So,
So who wants to start?
Yeah.
Yeah, what are we discussing?
So,
Yeah.
we talked about weighted grades at the start of the last school year. It was kind of my first introduction to you guys about my thoughts on education and all of that. Then we had a meeting later in the year, I believe in March, on this. This kind of came out of left field on me, our last admin meeting. And so my response to your suggestion was so that we could have this conversation tonight. Because I need to understand the rationale. If you give me a theory and I understand it, I can get 100% behind it and we can figure it out, right? But if I'm just, here's a suggestion without rationale with anything like that, well, let's talk type of thing. So my sticking to my guns thing was so that I could better understand where you guys are coming from and why, and then possibly ask you guys questions.
Okay, so to give a little bit more background on this is, when we originally decided to go with the weighted grades, or weighted GPA, however you want to say it, it was decided that we would start this fall for 10th through 12th graders. Through our discussion with curriculum and instruction, it was brought up that it might be best to go back to this year's, starting with this year's sophomores, rather than everybody this year. So that's kind of a little bit of content behind.
Because,
Now you guys can talk about
I
the
can,
reason.
Yeah,
I
go
can
ahead.
try and
Yes.
take a run at it.
yeah.
So so I spent a fair amount of time on this, preparing, to be able to give you, so I'm going to represent a number of different people's thoughts on this. So I've talked to all 4 of the current 4.0 students, because that's one group, because that group's affected in a certain way. I also talked to career and college recruiters, because I wanted to get their sense for, as you're applying for colleges, weighted versus non-weighted, partially weighted, i.e. it was weighted for 1 year. So I wanted to make sure that I was all-inclusive and asking lots of people. And then I also talked to 2 families of students that weren't currently in the 4.0 group, but also still could be affected. First off,
Can I just stop you though?
sure.
You were not given a list of the 4.0 students. You just know
Correct.
this through your own experience.
Yep,
Your
correct.
son? Okay.
I don't know if it probably wasn't even through my son.
Or however you.
Yeah.
Correct.
No, yeah, because I don't.
Well, I think it's.
The school did not give me a list of who are the 4.0 grades in any way, shape, or form.
Well,
I,
it's-
Kevin Bourne, did this on my own without anybody directing me to do. Do you want more legalese?
No, that's all I wanted to make it very clear so people understood that.
Because it was partially told at graduation, they said the 4 ushers were the highest GPAs of the junior class.
Oh, I did not know that. Okay.
So, and I'm assuming they wouldn't have 6 if there only were 4 perfect
No,
GPAs.
that makes sense then. Okay.
You know. Okay.
So,
Sorry.
so tried to make sure that I was talking to a lot of different people. Number one, everybody was in favor of weighted grades. There was no one that did not think that that was a good idea, for all the reasons we've discussed. Kids that are taking harder classes should have, be rewarded. And again, we're trying to build an academic, institution here where we're, absolutely giving credit for that. Some people brought up that in years past, you could have a student that took no college classes and got a 4.0, and then you had somebody that took a ton of college classes, yet they were seen as equal, which again, as we vote for MVPs on our team, very few times do you find that, the kid that does this, they both end up in the same place. So everyone was in favor of weighted grades. The career or the admissions counselors were probably the ones that were the most clear. Now, I did ask them the question of, what if we were to go back a year when kids didn't know that grades were going to be weighted to try to get some sort of additional fairness in it? And, you know, they said the short answer is that no one should ever have their grades changed, even retroactively or moving forward, except for incoming freshmen. It would impact the classes that are offered and the classes that students choose or chose along the way. They could have made different decisions all along had they known classes were going to be weighted. This likely could mess up scholarships, class rank, and potential admission for, you know, a number of students. So from a college recruiting standpoint, they're saying you can't change the rules in the middle of the game as it relates to college admission.
And they're saying freshmen, not even just sophomores?
Again, I was fairly generic in not getting into details of
Yeah.
going, sophomores is the first opportunity to take a class that would be weighted.
Okay, so
Therefore,
That's gonna be one of my questions, though. Isn't honors English 9?
No, it's 10.
It's 10, okay.
so we would, well, I'll get,
Sophomore would
I'll
be
get the
first.
recommendation. Now I'm just trying to give you data points. Again, I also found, because I did talk to some students, very few of the students understood the whole bigger picture, specifically in that if your currently class rank is 10, and you are a senior and want to finish out, you had woodworking, you had all these classes that you're really looking forward to taking. If they're JWP classes and weighted as a 1, and the student that is class rank of 11 takes all college classes weighted as 1.25, you know, you could have a lot of kids surpass you as class rank. So you would, very few kids understood that if they want to maintain their class rank or improve it, they'd pretty much have to take all weighted classes. And then, of course, as you get to the 4.0 families, I did speak to all of them, you know, same thing going, if it's important to be class rank of 1, you know, pretty much every single one of them will have to take all college classes, get all A's in there, and then you'll end up with the same. So there was a sense of, once people understood sort of how it could work, i.e. that you take a JWP class and it'll actually bring your GPA down, assuming that you are up against someone taking all college classes. Because again, those are weighted 4.6 on a 1.25. JWP is a 1 and a 4.0. It will bring your semester GPA down. So once they understood that, and again, my concern is nobody fully understands exactly how this would all work. And we've got kids registering for their college classes July 30th, that if we wait too long, I think you're gonna see a whole lot of changing once they understand, you know, oh, so you're saying if I want to improve my class rank, anybody that's behind me, I need to be taking more weighted classes than them, or I will go backwards. So what it seemed to be is that the only, you know, the fairest way, number one, seniors would be affected the most, and you know, I didn't find anybody supporting, thinking it was a good idea to implement this with seniors. Juniors, there was a question of, yep, they still have 2 years to impact, but what about, so every, you know, and again, the conclusion that I came to, I know it's gonna be more work for the staff, because Casey specifically explained how having a class with 10th, 11th, and 12th graders all in a class going, oh, these kids are weighted, these aren't, fully understand, you know, how that will kind of work out, but it just would seem that it's well worth that extra effort. And it won't be that many kids of juniors and seniors in the sophomore English class, for instance. But it's well worth that. But again, that was the concern, is just, you're setting up a potential that kids shouldn't take any JWP classes because it'll hurt their GPA, if that's solely what's important to them. And I don't want to put these kids in that position. Katie, what would you like to
I agree too,
add?
because it's not reflected on their whole high school career. It's just gonna be 1 year for our seniors, and if you do bring it back to sophomore year, then they have that whole opportunity to
Make
have their-
choices.
Make choices based on weighted grades.
Yeah. And I would agree.
If you take it at your standpoint of like, they have to not take JWP classes just to maintain their like class rank and all that, if that's all that matters, that's what, isn't that what weighted GPA is? In basically, you know,
So,
if you want to have a higher class rank, you have to outperform people, and by doing that, you have to take more college classes. So I'm gonna be, I guess, devil's advocate, I guess.
No problem.
I'll say that I think it'd be a wise decision to give the seniors and juniors a chance to bump up their GPAs past a 4.0, or the people that, you know, are sitting at a 3.99 because they got 1 A- freshman year,
Mhm.
you know, and that takes them from ranked first all the way down to 5th.
Mhm.
You know, I just think, you know, it's going to be a battle of who takes the most college classes in any grade when it's weighted grades,
Mhm.
you know?
Correct.
So I don't really see the point of restricting college classes to be weighted or unweighted for
I think-
juniors and
I
seniors.
think it's
Yeah.
the time.
Yeah, so what if you took all college classes your junior year, all of them, saving or wanting to save and take some JWP classes like independent study or whatever, you're not getting any credit for the fact that you took all college classes as a junior, because we're not implementing it till your senior year. So now you've got to go, well, if I want to maintain class rank, I guess I don't get to take woodworking or independent study. I can only take college classes. So again, if you had had the opportunity to lay out your high school career and your goal was to maintain, you know, the maximum GPA, you could absolutely, you know, do that and focus on that. But here we sit where you've already made decisions for 3 years. Do you now have to change it because we changed kind of the goalpost in the middle of the game? I mean, is that fair to kids?
Well, also at that standpoint, wouldn't we have to then implement it the year after this one because sophomores have already registered for classes? Or are those able to be changed and they're still able to go into PSEO classes on such short notice?
They've already
Yes.
known, but they knew they were,
yeah, so
we had the weighted
I
grades.
would piggyback off of that a little bit, but kind of the opposite of what you're saying. Number one, I want to bring up the point is that weighted grades aren't just off campus. We
Correct.
made it a point,
CIS,
a huge point of mine was to bring college classes into this school. And it's
Correct.
going to continue to be a point of mine. The whole point was keeping kids here. However, if this has the opposite effect, are we really serving JWP and its students? I mean, these are some of the questions I have for you guys in part of this larger conversation.
sure.
I like to push. I like to get what's best out of people, and I like to give them opportunities for them to realize, because had I gone just based off of my first stint in college, would be nowhere near where I am today, right? Sometimes you have to work harder and find new avenues, and sometimes you have to be pushed and prodded and pulled sometimes. So I would say, you would have to bring it back to 10th grade. You couldn't do it with just the seniors and then bring the juniors on board. You couldn't do that. If you're gonna do it, you have to bring it back to 10th grade. But then, have we given them enough information and enough time to really understand
Mhm.
your 3-year thing. You have this opportunity. So again, if we're thinking this through, all the way through, what's the correct course of action? I mean, I have no issues pivoting or shifting or anything like that whatsoever. This is
Sure.
something that I would definitely like to see, but I don't want it to come with an asterisk next to it, you know? It has to be earned and it has to be done right and everybody has to be given opportunity.
Are you thinking not even starting with the sophomores this year and giving,
saying-
educating the freshmen on
Yeah,
what's
I'm
going
just
to
asking you a
come?
question.
And then,
Yeah.
then following year, then
Have-
start it?
Have we given enough information, enough understanding on what this means and how they can chart the next 3-4 years
Yeah.
of their lives? Are we confident that we've done that? I can't say that I am.
No, I would say we have not. I mean, considering
Yeah.
one of the kids with a 4.0 didn't understand exactly how weighted grades would impact them, the answer is no, we have
Right.
not.
And so with that in mind, this is the goal, this is the end game, we start the education process this year.
Mm-hmm.
Therefore, those 9th graders coming into the high school, we have our transitions conversation saying, this is what the impact is, those of you that are interested in this. This is what we have for you, this is how we can keep you here.
Right.
There is a boatload of other opportunities we have for you as well.
Yeah, so you'd basically give them their entire freshman year to be getting information and talking to the career counselor and talking to, you know, interactions with lots of different people before they had to make a decision, which would then be their sophomore year, which they actually do while they're in school as a freshman.
So then, how are you gonna tell them when they turn into juniors and seniors that they're taking the same CIS class, but the juniors get 1.25 credits, but the seniors who are taking the exact same class are only getting 1 credit?
But again, you know, one would argue that the grading system that you started high school with is how you should finish. You shouldn't change the grading
and you're-
system in the middle of your, you know, again, think of it like at college. If you're a sophomore and all of a sudden they change the whole grading method to grading on a curve, or if you're at a college that grades on a curve and you're not, how do those grades equate to one another?
And I would say, I mean, if you call it, it's a competition of your GPA, right? Your standing, and you're not competing with the junior if you're a senior. So it's the apples to apples with your seniors and your apples to apples with your juniors. So,
I think, I do agree with the starting at the sophomores, going up through there, but how do I word this? It feels like, at least in my perspective, not having a perfect 4.0, I was sort of teased about maybe being able to get over to that, and now we're backing up and saying, oh no, never mind.
Well, but you gotta understand that if you're filling out applications for college, are you gonna put that your grade was weighted or not weighted? Because if you say it's a weighted and you've only got a 4.0, they're gonna go, what is wrong? You should have a 4.6. So I'm not sure, because again, you know, you have to tell them, was your GPA weighted or not weighted? So how are you gonna explain that it was partially weighted?
Right.
And you just used your weighted to get to a 4.0, but you didn't get all the way to a 4.6?
Okay.
So I'm not sure that it's gonna, you know, because again, the 4.0s are gonna continue to move to 4.2.
Okay. Would, like for higher up schools, that
Class
say-
rank. Class rank will be your number one thing that they're looking at. Because when you say it's non-weighted, obviously a 3.95 is amazing.
Yeah, I'm thinking like if you're, for example, wanting to go to an Ivy League
Yep,
and you put that your unweighted grade is 3.95.
Yep.
Whatever.
Yep.
And you're ranked 5th.
Mhm.
But if your whole entire thing was weighted, you could be at like a 4.3, 4.4.
Yep.
But then there's some people who will put down their unweighted is 4.0, but their weighted is also 4.0, you know, if they don't take any college classes.
No, that's not the way it would work. If you don't take any college classes, your school either has a weighted GPA or it doesn't. You don't say that if you did or didn't take college classes.
No, I know.
Okay.
I'm just saying, like,
Okay.
if like saying you're coming from an unweighted school,
Okay,
but if it were weighted, you can see which student put more work in, but which one has a higher chance of getting into that school.
yeah, so the next thing I would say is, number one, they're not looking at just I just spent last week going to 5 different schools, so I'm a little familiar with this. Many of them won't even tell you what you need to have for a GPA. They're now saying they're looking for academic excellence, which is, ACT or SAT, your class rank, your GPA, weighted or unweighted, along with your letters of recommendation, also speaking to your academic excellence.
And your involvement too, I think, right? Don't they look at
Well,
like all the
yeah.
things that you
Sure.
have done?
Of
Yeah.
course. But I'm just saying that our decision to wait or not wait for seniors is not, going to have as big of impact as I think you're hoping that it might.
Okay.
Again, what I would expect, I'm just giving, is likely class rank wouldn't change with weighted grades for the seniors. Because again, assuming the 4.0s all want to be valedictorian, they're going to take all college classes, which is going to maximize how much they move forward. And as long as you take all college classes, you will still be number 5.
Yeah.
Now, you may have a 4.0, but they've got 4.2s or 4.1s or 4.095.
Couldn't they also possibly, if they have a 4.0 and their main goal is to be valedictorian, they just their senior year take only easy non-college credit classes, so then they ensure that they are valedictorian?
No.
Or
No.
is it, if there's a tie for valedictorian, then
'cause-
does it go to how many?
No, because
Something like
they'll
that.
only end up with a 4.0.
But he's
'Cause if they don't-
he's asking if we don't weight it, right?
Yeah.
Oh, I thought you were saying if we did weight it.
No, I'm saying if, like.
You're
'cause
right, yeah,
We've
you could
already,
take-
That's why we
you
want
could
because
to
I'm
switch to
assuming
weighted.
the
But again,
decision is already made
Yep.
that it's going to be sophomores, whether that's this year or next year. That's up for discussion.
sure,
So if they want to be valedictorian, but they're all tied for 4.0, do we
Yep.
have 4 valedictorians?
Yes.
Or, okay.
yes, you do. Because again, just like last year, we had 3.
Yeah.
You,
2 years ago, last year we had.
sorry, 2 years ago, we had 3. You can't delineate between who took harder classes and who didn't
Okay.
when you don't have a weighted GPA.
Okay.
That would be
But-
unfair.
But the weights will prevent something like that from happening in the future,
Yep.
yeah.
Okay.
Which, was it a 4.6? So yeah. So in the future, the maximum will be a 4.6
Did
GPA.
that get changed one time when I wasn't here? Because I thought it was 4.4.
4.6, 3.4, 2.2, so it went down.
Okay, so I did miss when that changed, because the original one that I was told was 4.4, 3.3, 2.2, 1.1.
Yeah, that's the only
Okay.
one I remember, sorry.
Yeah, I don't know.
I'm done.
So is the decision to, when does this start, I think is the decision that needs to be made.
If I had to make the decision, I'd say we start educating our ninth graders right now. I mean, it's the only real, if we're talking about equity and we're talking about making sure that this is fair and that everybody understands, because Mr. Dashner, I think that you of all people would say if you had this information in ninth grade, it may have been a much more motivating factor for you, because you're very academically inclined, correct?
Yes.
So therefore, if we're going to do it, again, I think we have to do it the right way. As much as I don't personally like it, I think you have to do it the right way. So I think we start with our ninth graders and we work our way up, unless you guys have any other suggestions
No,
for me, that's what I would like to see.
Yeah, we were thinking sophomores, but I think you make a very, very valid point that we need to start educating them first and then the next year implement with those sophomores. Yeah.
Keeping in mind that PSEO is very different than what it used to be. I mean, the fact that there's 50 kids all participating, I mean, it used to be a very select program. And now it's just this, well, I don't like JW, you know, it's become very interesting as to how this has played out over the last 10 years. I don't know that it's necessarily a good thing, but what I do like hearing you say, Mr. Reisdam, is the fact that, again, our goal is to try and keep as many kids taking as many classes as they possibly can here at JWP. CIS, again, I wanted to require every teacher that has a master's or has the ability to teach a CIS be required to teach a CIS.
The only issue you're gonna have with that is classrooms. We don't have enough classrooms to do it. I mean, I'm short 2 classrooms as it is. We would
Understand.
take more teachers and the whole 9 yards. So
But I would
I
love.
would love to do it too.
But I would love to be dealing with that problem and that it's being brought forward, that we will keep more kids here at our school if you find me 2 more classrooms. Because I think we would work harder to find you 2 more classrooms. I mean, does Jeremy really need an office? I mean,
I
really?
just downsized.
We already talked about moving them over to the clinic, so.
But my point is that these are the things that I would like us to be dealing with, is not necessarily food service, but how do we find you 2 more classrooms to offer 2, more CIS classes here at JWP? I mean, I would love to be dealing with those issues. So please don't ever not bring those challenges to us. Because again, we're trying to get back to a time where we're more focused on academics and being an academic institution. It's not about athletics. It's not about, all these other, what are we here for? We're trying to educate all students. And we've still got a class with, math scores in the 50 percentile of, being proficient in math. That's problematic. We had 69 Fs, in high school, of which 2/3 of them are in math. That's all very problematic, Again, was all for implementing right away. My takeaway was just a lot of people didn't understand quite the impact of what you were proposing and that it needed to sink in and be better explained before they went, wait a minute, you're telling me if I take a JWP class, it could, affect my GPA? Yep, it can, or your class rank, I should say.
Yeah.
And I think it took a while for people to maybe ask those questions to understand it. So I owe you an apology for not maybe pushing those more at that meeting to have maybe a broader discussion over that, because I think, in reality, we probably moved a little too quickly to just, approve, and I apologize for that.
No, I'm usually, like I said, I came here for the discussion, because that's kind of the only way you work your way through it, so
Right?
for me, I'm always available for the discussions. Again, the reason I reacted the way that I did, I need to understand it, so.
Yeah, no, we knew Jeremy didn't explain things as well as he could have, and we needed to eliminate the middle. No,
I
I'm
had Casey with me.
sorry,
We,
just joking.
I think it might help.
That was a joke. This is Kevin Bourne. I was only kidding. I didn't mean any of that. Strike it from the record.
I do think it might be beneficial to maybe throw up some examples on a PowerPoint and just explain it to the seniors and juniors and sophomores why we're not doing this, because,
Yeah, I already have a newsletter
okay,
going in my head that I need to push out by the end of the week that's gonna say, this is the rationale, this is what we're doing, this is why we're doing it, what does this mean for all of you
yeah.
that were excited, feel maybe a
Yeah.
little bit cheated, hey, we apologize, but we want to get this right.
And maybe
No.
throwing a couple examples of how it could affect, then they can actually visualize and
Well,
see
yeah,
it,
if we
because I
do
didn't
this now,
understand
this is
it,
what it
so.
could mean.
Yeah,
By waiting and doing it the way we're doing it, we're ensuring that everybody gets honored for the work they put in up to this point.
yeah.
And we're not allowing people to leapfrog just because in the last 2 years, all of a sudden, hey, I understand it now, I get it.
Right,
It doesn't discount those first 2 years.
Right.
right.
Well, thank you for listening to us and.
So would you like a vote from the board, asking to rescind our previous and a new motion to ask staff to do something, or is there, none of
No, I
that's
think- I
necessary?
think we're fine. I think this is all up there for the community anyway, and if they want to come back and refer to it, they certainly can. But I have no issues explaining this and where we're at with it. I mean, we're doing the right thing, so.
Sounds good.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much.
And thank you, Eric, for your questions, because that was very helpful too. I don't know how you feel about it, but hopefully it makes a little bit more sense why we're bringing this forward.
All right. So then on to, any questions on that? On to the cell phone use policy for the second
We
reading.
had to put so many controversial things on this
Yeah.
agenda, didn't we?
Have you been able to open that yet?
I
or-
haven't given.
Oh, okay.
Oh,
Is it on there?
It's what on where? Yeah, it's on here.
We're not on new business yet.
So are we open discussion on this? Are we, what are you wanting from us
So-
on this one?
The talk with this is looking at the different things that we discussed and stuff like that, and then having the principals look at it. And one of the big things too is now to get the teacher input. And
Oops.
well, and I don't know, were there were some additions since the first
The
reading,
first
right?
reading,
So
yep.
now it says students in the elementary school must keep their cell phones in their backpacks in their locker.
And that was the process they have previously used and has been working for them.
So a question for you, Mr. Isdam. Do you think, so you've reviewed this policy. Do you think this will work, or do you think we need a policy where, there are schools that ask kids to check their cell phones in to a cell phone locker, and I'm talking high school for now, that then takes this away from the teachers needing to be the gatekeeper in their classroom and moves it more to a all-encompassing, where it isn't individual teachers, it seems as though we've run into a lot of, some teachers allow it, some don't, some say, well, as long as I don't see it, it's fine. If I catch you, and some are like, I don't want to be the babysitter. This shouldn't be my role. Do you think we as a board should take a more proactive approach and remove this from the classroom and move it more to a facility or a broader approach rather than a class by class?
Well, I do know this is an issue that is not just local anymore. This is national.
Right.
This is everywhere, and I think that in order for this to work universally across the board, there's gonna have to be something that's universally set in stone. For JWP, what does that look like? Do I think that we're going to continually have issues with teachers on a given day or regularly looking the other way or choosing not to have to deal with it from time to time? Absolutely, it's just human nature to slip every once in a while or have a difference of opinion or whatever the case may be. But that doesn't solve our problem, Our problem is still going to be that these things are a distraction. Kids are going to look at them as often as they're able to. They're gonna find ways to not pay attention when they need to be, and that affects everything. So my hope is that we can handle this as a staff, that we can have conversations, that we can all get on the same page and understand that
That's okay.
there really is no educational value in a cell phone beyond what we provide as a school as it is. We provide the computers. I even want to clamp down harder on those, to be perfectly honest. I want more control.
Yep.
It wouldn't hurt, but I feel like we should, as admin and teachers, be able to do this on our own. You know what I mean?
Oh, I do.
To me, that's the thing. We should be able to do this. We should be able to say, no, your phones come up here, and, hey, your phone came out, go see Mr. Eisen. You know, that's the easiest thing. You don't have to handle it, anything like that, just send them down to me, and I'll deal with it, that type of thing. So
Sure.
my hope is that that is what we can do. The reality of it is it's gonna be tough sledding, so.
So my question is partially to ask you, do you need us to help you make your job easier?
Yeah, if
Again,
Teachers
you know,
are-
we've got broad shoulders, we're willing to take the heat.
Yeah. I
I
guess I
mean-
would have to see the language to see what that looks like. You know, because to me, it's just, you don't have them. You know, they're in the pockets or in your locker, much like elementary.
Are you talking though, like pocket versus us putting up a physical locker?
Yes.
That's what you're talking
I am.
about.
I think you're still gonna run into the same issues though. I didn't bring it today. Am I gonna put it in a locker? I didn't bring it today. So it's gonna be in the front right pocket, or I'm gonna give you the dummy phone that
Right.
broke last year, and I'm gonna keep my other one. I mean, you're gonna run into the same issues.
But I'm trying to help you with the enforcement of saying, my job is to teach, not to be a babysitter. I shouldn't have to. Or, you know, it's not distracting, you know, we've all got quiet time. Again, I'm just trying to help give you the cover that you want or need. I don't disagree with you. We should be able to get everyone to follow our policy, and we write them up if they don't. And after, you know, 2 or 3 write-ups, they should probably find some other school to work at, because we're not gonna tolerate this. But I don't wanna run your school. I want you to decide, because I've been in schools that are much, you know, I mean, it is, you know, and again, so I'm trying to make sure that I understand, because we see you as a partner with us. And we very much believe in you, support you, think you've done a great job, but want to make sure that we're taking your lead as to what you want from us. Again, if staff is going to be the difficult part, I want to help try and remove that, you know, from that, because you're right, we're always going to have the dummy phones, of course. Although, over time, it will absolutely, I think you'll be surprised at how quickly though, if that's the feel, but if we go into a class, and I won't state classes, and they're like, yep, you can use your phones in here, well, then they're motivated to keep them with them to get to that class, because they know they're gonna be able to use it. Or if you've got people that are coming in and subbing, and the subs are like, you can't have your cell phones. Oh no, regular teacher lets us have them all the time. This is what creates, you know, difficult policies. So again, I'm just trying to help, not be directive.
What kind of feedback from doing it this last year, what kind of feedback did you get from the teachers, if any? Of what they would like to see changed or not changed, or?
I really never broached the question. It was always we're recommitting to this. This is what we're doing. Even if the state wasn't doing this, I would still be committed to it because I believe it's the right thing.
Right.
So I think that's probably a piece that I missed was, okay, what's working, what's not working, why isn't it then how do we give you the support, because that's what I feel my role is here, is to support the teachers, to make sure that they have the time and the space to deliver the instruction that they need so that these kids can pass any test that they come up against. They can do what they want to do once they're past these walls, so, I guess, can you give me a week?
Of course,
Think about that question?
Of course.
A little bit? I'd like to dig into
Yeah.
this and maybe a couple other ones. I'll reach out to my principal group to kind of find out what's working for them, because even the cell phone lockers, at one particular school in our area, they use those for middle school. Juniors and seniors, it's an honor system. It's not a universal thing anywhere right now, except for those schools that have banned it completely. But then again, you're seeing them take steps where it's not even the lockers, it's those bags that Jeremy was looking at.
Those pouches.
Yeah, the other day, which, well, you could keep them on you, but you can't access them.
sure.
Type of thing, but again, it's, we went round and round in our admin meeting about this and other things. Because a lot of these problems are not teacher generated, they're forced to deal with them. And it's always one more thing. As being a teacher a year ago, that's how I saw it. It's always just one more thing, and there's nothing there to help you. Whereas that's why I'm taking the tack I am. Put it on me. I'll be that guy.
Right.
100%. And I appreciate, but let me give you a week or so to find some feedback, because I would like to have and appreciate all of your guys' support. I've felt it from day one. But yeah, I think I would like to pull some of the teachers, and I would like to have conversations with some of my peers as well. And then I think I'd be much better. So I might be in the next one of these, or curriculum meeting or whatever, please.
Study session or,
Yeah,
yeah.
I'd be more than
What-
happy to follow.
Our next regular meeting.
The only thing that I would say is it seems as though, and correct me if I'm wrong, but maybe not all teachers understood how much damage the cell phones are doing to our kids, as far as just seeing it as one more thing you're asking me to do versus I need to protect these kids from themselves. You know, I would agree. I mean, I would argue it's almost an epidemic.
Right, and I would agree with that. I'm not saying just one more thing because they don't want to deal with it.
No,
I'm saying one more thing because every new thing that comes up ends up on the teacher's.
I agree.
And
couldn't-
so therefore, what are we doing to support them in them dealing with one more thing?
Agreed.
And so that's where it's gotta come from, for me, to push it home, but
Right.
the biggest thing right now is, the one more thing is we have a large portion of our kids that aren't making it in certain classes,
Right.
and some of this can be directly attributed to the fact that I'm not interested in this subject, but I have a release right here,
Right.
Mm-hmm.
and that's,
Yep,
Right. No, we're all saying the same thing as that, you know, as far as that goes.
it's just finding that best
So-
solution for it, and I think, Jeremy, you were gonna look and see how many other schools had those pouches and see if you had any contacts there, right? See
Yeah.
how those are going?
Well,
Do you,
because on a student perspective, because it's happened for I think the last 3 years, that the policy or the pouch thing gets enforced, and then about 2 weeks in, all of the teachers don't care anymore, and the students just keep it on them and all of that. And it seems like, from an outsider's perspective and like a student perspective, it seems like we're trying to place the same policy over and over and over again, and yet we're not making any progress to it.
so we have to
You know.
hold people accountable for it.
Exactly. So I don't think, I just feel like the phone thing, yes, the teachers are going to say, oh, one more thing, but also if they want to have this good teaching environment and have kids attentive to them and willing to learn, it kind of has to be that one more thing on their plate so then they can teach efficiently, you know? And I think I still believe, like, yes, if a phone gets pulled out and it's not getting put in the pouch, they're refusing to go to the pouch, you could easily still take that load off of them, so then they don't have to take it and deal with it. But if we're gonna do it, it has to be done right, you know? Because
And I
it's
think
been
that's
done
what-
wrong the
And
last
that's what
few
we're
years.
trying
And I think that's what Mr. Bourne is alluding to too, is that
Yeah.
99.9% of all success has to do with follow-through, right? There's a billion good ideas out there in the world, but if you don't follow through, it's gonna fall apart at some point in time.
Yeah.
Accountability.
And so therefore, how do we shortcut it, right? How do we make sure that there is follow-through by limiting choices? And I think that's where we're at. I think that's where
Yeah.
you see a lot of schools are at right now.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And one other thing about the phone locker thing, I just feel like the good majority of the kids who will listen to that and put their phones in these specific phone lockers, if they're all put in the same place, like if they're spread out, then kids have to walk across the school to go get their phone. And then if they're all in one communal place, it's going to be one huge cluster at the end of school for everyone trying to get their phones. And what about the kids that only have 6 minutes until the school day ends to get all of their stuff, get their backpacks from their lockers and all of that, and then have to make a trip and try and get their phone from this phone locker and still make it onto the bus at 3:15.
Well, I think we make accommodations for that because we're losing how many minutes of class instruction time as it is right now, right? Just having to have the conversation every single day, put your phones up here, everybody bring them up, no, that means you, and then the one person that keeps it. So we're missing all that time anyway. We gotta tack on 3 more minutes, we tack on 3 more minutes. I mean, that's what we do.
I personally like to see them gone all day, just to have them have conversations at lunch, have them have conversations in between. I mean, so there's not that constant need to be looking at your phone. And I know my son keeps it in his gym locker all day and gets it at the end of the day. And he doesn't have it and he doesn't miss it. And it's just better for their mental health, for their academic performance. And then that's the feedback I got from one teacher in particular. I don't want to deal with them. I'd rather have them out of the classroom. It's not something that's put on me.
And
You
then
don't want to be the
also,
bad guy that has to patrol it. And
if everyone's phones are all in the same place, how are we going to deal with people taking other people's phones? Are the
They're
students
not all
going
in
to?
the same place.
No, here.
They each have their own little locker.
Yep,
Okay.
but
Well,
that has to be.
will they have it where someone, like them and then staff are the only ones that have access to that locker? Or is it at the end of the day, all of them get open and people grab what they?
No.
People would sometimes leave at different times of the day too.
Yeah,
Could be
you'd
on
have your
occasion,
own.
So you'd have to have your own separate.
Okay.
And that's one of the things that's up for discussion too.
Right.
What
Yeah, we're
extent
talking
do we
about
go with-
implementation that actually
Yeah.
we're not even
So-
there
Yep,
yet.
yep.
I mean, so that would be a great next step, but first, take your week, 2 weeks,
Yeah.
whatever you need, but
Yeah. I think we have time, our next meeting isn't for another month, right?
August 19th.
Yeah, so,
this continues to be something that's very important.
Yeah, but this could be a work session discussion too, and then we could go over
Correct.
the particulars or the final whatever at the board meeting, right?
yeah, we don't
We don't
We
do
don't
work
have another
sessions
study
during summer.
session in the summer, so we would have to make it a special one if we want to do that.
We kind of slack
And-
off in
and-
the summer.
And you might want it, I don't know,
really, if
is
we're here.
August 19th too late to,
Kinda
because we're
kidding.
gonna have to probably pull this policy and go through it again, right?
Right.
We can do an emergency adoption at any point, and it's good for 1 year.
Okay,
Okay, new business.
okay.
All right. Approve, onto new business, approve IEA, the fiscal year 25 to 27 contract for environmental health and safety services.
So we have Safety Sue that comes in from IEA. She comes in and makes sure that, we have 4 meetings with her during the year, but she's here monthly, making sure that we're following everything we need to, for environmental health and safety management services.
She'll
She's,
do like a mock OSHA inspection. She does all the trainings for the custodians and.
I would make an motion to approve the contract.
I'll
Okay.
second.
Motion by Kevin Bourne, seconded by Tim Burke. Is there any further discussion?
I just want to say it's a great name, Safety Sue. Whoever came up with that is a really smart person.
Mr. Demery.
If no further discussion, all those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say nay. Motion carries 5-0. Next one is to approve to increase certified teacher substitute pay from $165 to $175 a
So,
day.
it's brought to my attention that some local school districts are starting to up their certified teacher sub pay. There's one in our area about that's our size, that's at $200 a day. But Wendy did the research and reached out to other schools in our area to find out what they're paying for their certified teacher subs. We're right now kind of at average with $165 per day. So once again, Wendy did more work, looked at what the increase was for the same percentage to go up for our sub pay as what teacher pay went up. And it was $9 and some cents, so we rounded it up to $10. Wanting to increase the certified teacher substitute pay from $165 to $175 a day.
I'll move to approve, to increase certified teacher substitute pay from 165 to 175.
Motion made by Laura Size. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Tim Burke. Is there any further discussion?
I'll abstain, probably should.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, after no further discussion, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. Motion carries 4-0 and 1 abstention.
What, sorry, I probably should have brought this up during the discussion, but what constitutes a certified teacher substitute and a non-certified teacher substitute?
One is certified through the state of Minnesota. So anybody that's in the classroom teaching, like Katie Cahill, she is a certified sub.
Okay.
So they have a 4-year degree, and they've went through, given the state the information of what their background is. And
Okay.
so the state has given them whether it's a short call sub or a long-term sub license.
Okay. I just didn't know, because there's some substitutes who will come in and like actually teach something, and some who will just come in and say, here's what you need to do, and then sit at the desk and do nothing, you know? So,
And you only want to raise the pay for one of them, not both.
well, one's putting in more work than the other, you know?
There's a lot of variables.
So what
I mean, it
is the,
depends on
what
the
are we
teacher
paying
left for them
non-certified
to do.
sub?
Yeah.
We're
Maybe the
gonna
teacher
do the
can
research on
training.
that, of what we pay non-certified.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that'll be next month.
Any idea roughly what it is?
Currently.
Just roughly,
You mean for
non-certified.
non-certified, our paras, right? We were paying them like $13.59 an hour, but we'll bump that up.
So the 175 equates to what an hour?
Just around $22 an hour.
Okay. So we may
If
be
they're
paying
there for the
our,
whole day? Okay.
well, it's $22 an hour.
Yeah. And we generally only do half day, full day, just, that's what our
Mm-hmm.
teachers are allowed to take off, or a
Right.
day off is a half or full, so they'll get.
And so Eric, your non-certified might make $14 an hour versus 22.
And they wouldn't be a teacher, they wouldn't be able to instruct in the classroom.
They'd
'cause
sit
they're
there
not
and tell
They'd
you.
sit there
They
and tell you what to
they
do.
supervise.
Okay. Gotcha.
So rest assured.
Yeah.
They'd sit on their phone.
Okay. Gotcha.
Okay, okay.
No, it's gotta be in the phone locker.
All right, moving on. The contract for certified occupational therapist assistant.
New Richland holds this contract for us. We have Naomi, she works between the two buildings. We used to have a 50-50 contract with them. Now we have a 40-60 contract with them because she is over in New Richland more often than she is here. So therefore, this would just be renewing her contract for another year as our certified occupational therapy assistant.
I would make a motion to approve that contract, even though I don't have access to it.
I had to request access, and it's,
I knew she would look at it.
Is there a
so I-
second?
and Mike had to actually grant the access. But it is written for 24-25 fiscal year, that it is 40% of the contracted time. So it would be an estimated $20,235.01.
Awesome.
I'll
So-
second it.
Laura,
I did
Laura,
second
Sorry, I
it,
didn't
yeah.
hear.
Lori already seconded.
Wow, I tell you. So motion to approve by, you got all that? Perfect. Is there any discussion, any further discussion? If no further discussion, then all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. Motion carries 5-0. All right, now we are on to approve the resolution regarding write-in vote county.
Bless you.
Sorry, excuse me.
So this resolution essentially just says that, oh, thanks Wendy, sorry. If, for the school board election this fall, if we don't receive as many write-in votes as the highest voted candidate on the ballot, they won't count write-in votes. It just saves time and effort, manpower for the county. Does anyone have any questions about it?
Is this a change from something previous?
I think we have to do this every year, don't we?
We have to do it whenever we have an election.
Great,
Or, yeah.
We have the choice to do it every time we have an
great.
election.
I would make a motion to approve.
Okay, motion by Kevin Bourne, second by Tim Burke. Is there any discussion? All right. Then
It's a resolution. Yeah.
Nope.
Burke,
Yes.
Cahill,
Yes.
Zeiss,
Yes.
Bourne,
Yes.
Dashner.
Yes. Motion carries 5-0. All right, on to discussion about the academic eligibility for activities and field trips.
So the high school league gives us the opportunity we have to have a procedure for academic eligibility for activities through the high school league, but they give us the opportunity to set what that is ourselves. So through our discussion with field trip policies and which could, or should students that are failing classes be going on field trips and whatnot, it was brought up about, well, what should our academic eligibility be? Should it be that they're passing with a D minus, or should it be that they're passing with a C minus? So we got into that discussion. So I asked Nikki and David to be here because we had this discussion this morning also at our admin meeting. But I'd like to let them weigh in on the board's views on this also, so we can make a decision on where we want to be for our academic eligibility for activities and field trips.
That thing's heavy, I'm gonna let you. You can start.
So currently, what I went to this year was checking grades at midterm and at the end of the quarter. Leading up to 2 weeks leading up to each one of those standpoints, I started physically checking grades and letting coaches know where students stand, if they had any Fs. if they need to get in contact with their teachers to try to get to a passing grade. 1 week before that midterm or end of the quarter, I would reach out to those students and let them know exactly what assignments they were missing, ask them where they're at with those assignments, have we talked to the teacher, are we doing makeup tests, etc. A good portion of them have made that up by the time they hit that midterm or end of the quarter timeframe. Obviously, there are some that still had an F at that point. We do all know some of those subjects that are more challenging than others that cause that to be at an F or at that D- level. Personally, and I brought it forward to Jeremy this morning during our meeting, I would be willing to even go to a 2-week, every 2 weeks, to be doing grade checks as well. This would allow us to have more eyes on those students, to keep them on track with turning their assignments in, or making sure that they're turning their assignments in, and then also allowing them to have a grace period too. Obviously, we did have grace period. It was the 2 weeks before when I started notifying coaches, me letting them know, and then obviously when grades were turned in, and then after that, they were on probation, basically being ineligible. After midterms, it was until they got their grade up to a D-, and they were able to start participating again. At the end of the quarter, they were missing the next 2 weeks of the start of the next quarter.
So what are your thoughts on going up to
Going up to a
C-?
C-, I think is going to be a challenge, especially for some of our teams that have less students. Some of these kids might have A's and B's in all their classes, except for one. And so now we're going to say that they're not eligible. And especially if it's based off if they just have to retake a test, or if they're missing an assignment. Don't get me wrong, I'm 100% academics first on all of this. I went, even when I put the original piece together, I did a bunch of research on other schools to get what they were doing, and I even went back to schools today as well. And a lot of the schools are doing checks at midterm and at the end of the quarter, and they have to have a passing grade, which is the D-. USC is doing grade checks every 2 weeks. There are some schools that aren't doing anything. They just have to be in good standard in order to graduate. I have not seen a single school going up to a C- yet.
Let's be the first.
Does it have to be one or the other? Like D- or C-?
Where did the C- come from? I may
Just
be,
a C level,
Or a C,
like,
yeah,
we
whatever.
were talking about it at our policy meeting, and we just would like to raise the bar from a D- to a C-.
So how did you think it went with track? Because I was really impressed with student effort based on that set standard of a C-.
It worked for some, but we didn't hold everyone accountable for it, all the students.
Yeah, you gotta do that.
So,
so for those that aren't aware, do you know what they did in track?
No.
So I think you need to let,
yeah, so I can
because I don't know
explain
that we're all on
Yeah.
the same page here.
So basically, with our current handbook policy that we have in place,
Yep.
is that I was enforcing that they have to be at a D- in order to participate in extracurricular activities when I do grade checks, final grade checks at midterm and final grade checks at the end of the quarter. Track coaches got together and decided that they wanted to make that policy even stricter, or more strict, being up to a C-. Does it have the pros to it? Yep. Did our list grow more? Yep. But were we on top of them still? Yes, of getting their stuff in. But I know that there were some kids that were on that list that still ended up participating in a track meet that had less than a C-.
So
So
when-
that's where
Yeah, we have to hold.
it's hard, yeah, so for me, I'm holding them to a D- for it. It's holding the track coaches, then if this is what you're gonna put forwards, then we have to make sure that they're also doing it.
So when they agreed to that, did you then have to implement what the track coaches wanted? Were you then doing the C- checks?
No.
So
Well,
how-
I was doing the checks, so
You
I was,
were.
I was doing more checks, so prior to every meet, I was running a report of who had a C minus or below, and figuring out, okay, what classes are they failing in,
Yep.
and what assignments are they missing? And I was providing that report to the head coach.
Okay.
How far in advance would it be from these track meets?
How far in advance?
Yeah.
Sometimes the day of or the day before.
I think that might
So-
be one of the issues because there's some of the meets, especially the more important meets, that registration for those, for that track meet is due 2-3 days beforehand for them to get like the roster in.
But we can
Or-
also scratch kids that day of too.
Yeah.
I think it was kind of a learning curve. Like, I like your
It was.
idea of
Right.
every 2-week
Yep.
check. Like, it
Yep.
wasn't really set when the grades were going to be checked, I think was part of the problem with it. But
Yep.
it was nice to see kids that were kind of teetering on that D minus, moving their grade, their
Correct.
goal to a C minus,
Yep.
which gives them more cushion, and
Mhm.
then you're not running in last minute where that
As
goes
a
to an F.
first-year coach, when you told me that, I think my response was, really? D minus?
Right.
So I think, there could be raising the bar a bit.
But we,
Yeah.
I mean, we have a handful of kids that I talk to every midterm, every quarter, all year long, of just making sure that they're getting above that D minus.
But we should be, raising the bar and also pushing these kids to focus more on the academic side because this is an extracurricular, in my
Yes.
opinion. So this isn't their first
You can't.
Priority.
student, not athlete.
Yeah, you can't join another activity if you're not stable in your academics, If you aren't stable there, then
Then we need to change what's passing and what's not then. Because the D is passing.
Right.
And I don't think it should be.
110%
Right.
on this, let's raise the bar. However, this meeting we had this morning, one of the things I like best about our admin meetings is we get a little heated. It's kind of fun, but it's good because we get to bounce things off of one another and it's all good afterwards because we all have different perspective. And it's one of the things that I find most valuable because it helps me get involved in the conversation. So a few of the things that came up. Number one, these are passing grades. Can't get by that one fact. Okay, would I love to see it raised? Absolutely. But you also have to account for, we have students that just can't get better than a D. They put in a ton of effort. I can think of 3 students right now in our school currently that struggle to get to that point in certain classes, and they're absolutely fantastic kids, right? And I'm gonna exclude them because it doesn't click for them. They don't get it. They're putting in the time. They're working with mom and dad at home, getting help from teachers, and it's still, I just need to pass because I'm a senior next year and I don't have to take the subject again. That type of thing. So now we have to start splitting hairs, and then we can look at the other side of it, which has came up, well, is this an individual that's working super hard and just can't make it, or is this somebody that has a ton of missing assignments? And just, do we differentiate that then? Do we make it about missing assignments then? So there's a lot of different variables. Do we say, a D is okay, but you have to have a C minus grade point average, right? Collectively, you can't have any Fs, but the grade point average has to be 2. I mean, so all of these things came up in this meeting, and absolutely, I would love to see everybody succeeding and putting in more effort. But then you also get into other conversations of what are the policies in each classroom, or how much is tests weighted as opposed to everyday work, and can we turn work in whenever the heck we want to, and what does that look like, and how does it look? I mean, there's a whole lot of different variables that go into this conversation. I think the conversation is fantastic as well, to be perfectly honest. But we have to get over some of those humps before we can really, that's kind of where we're at with it as an admin group was, yeah, it would be awesome if we could, hey, you're student first, student athlete, that's the way it is, that's the way it should be. But we also have to change some other things to go along with this in order to support it. Because otherwise, I think we'd be cutting out some pretty deserving kids that were working really, really hard. And granted, the vast majority probably are, they have 10 missing assignments, and we need to get better. We need to support, and we need to make sure that we're on them, and I think we do a good job. I can tell you with the field trip policy, I had 10 less people in summer school because they got their work done to go on their field trips. But yes, there were some kids that probably forged signatures, there were probably some teachers that just signed it because, you know, you're making efforts, and that's fine. But I saw real effort from students. I saw more kids working towards getting eligible and their grades changing leading up to those field trips as a result of us putting an incentive on this thing. So that's kind of where that meeting went today. So it's a lot of things to think about.
So, is there a delineation between things that FFA does and field trips? Are they the same thing?
Yeah, it's intercurricular rather than extracurricular, but it's all gonna be,
They don't
I
fall
held
under-
them to the same standards.
So does
I can tell
Nikki
you
have to do the same thing before kids go on FFA trips
I
of
do
doing?
FFA.
You have to do
Yeah,
that one.
I do that, and I
And it-
happily do it.
And it's the same process.
Same exact
Got it.
process, yep.
I mean,
100%.
while I'd love to move it up, I mean, I agree with you, it's passing, you know? And again, to me, there's a big difference between a D minus and an F, because an F could be zero effort, zero work. A D minus at least means they're turning in enough to pass the class. I don't know. I mean, to your point, track could do it because it's a huge sport. But if you maybe do that to bowling or do it to golf, not saying, you know, but if you lose one or two, that's a much bigger deal than,
Yeah, well, for bowling, it's already at, you have to have a C average and 0 Fs.
so
I do
bowling
like
has
that.
done something different, similar to what track
I
did.
should say the bowling that I run, it's not the adaptive.
Yeah,
Adaptive is separate.
the one that's not
part of it.
MSHSL.
Yeah,
Well, I'm doing whichever one the school is
Yeah.
the one managing,
yeah,
which that's adaptive, right?
yes. Yeah, they.
You
I
aren't
don't-
pulling any grades for the bowling you're talking about,
No, at the end, I do get the grades, and I don't let them letter if they.
but you're not doing the 2-week check at midterm and, okay. So they are different,
Yeah,
okay.
just, I would love it, but it's, since they're not technically part of the school, that's just more work for them that
Yeah.
I do the year end, and I don't let them letter if they don't have a C average or if they have any Fs.
Yeah. Well, what, you know, Nikki and David, what would you propose at this point?
I honestly, I really just started this thing February. I mean, started really getting after the field trips and all of that, and I just think it's, for me, if I continue to see just what we got and maybe more, I'd be tickled just to see that much more work turned in and that much more effort from our students, because success breeds success, you know? And so
So-
for us, it's just gonna be checking and doing our jobs and making sure that, you know, we set up those things ahead of time. Field trips, okay, fine. I need a list of everybody in this, when it comes to filling out those forms. We've talked about this too, especially in line with food service. Email needs to be sent along with the field trip request form to food service, how many kids are going, blah, you know what I mean, that type of thing, so they can start packing lunches if they need to. But it also needs to be, okay, who is going on these trips, and then I can run the report and say, get a hold of the kids 3-4 days ahead of time and say, you were deficient in one or more classes, you need to raise those grades by the morning of the trip, you need to get a hold of me, which is what I've been doing. And we just need to continue doing what we're doing. The kids that it's important for, they'll get it done. You know, I can tell you what, I find one forged signature, they're never going on a field trip again. Because that's just not the way we do things here at JWP, or should be done anywhere. And so, therefore, it's just about, I think, doing the things that we're doing, being diligent about it, but also putting things in place that's gonna make it easier for us to do this quickly, seamlessly, and communicate it to everybody that much better, because I do see effort. It was really encouraging for me to see the effort. from these students.
I have a question. Rather than even going to signatures, could we just go by what is the grade in Infinite Campus? Because what if a teacher's,
Yeah, no, yeah, that's gonna be probably the next step. I think even for some of the teachers too, it's kind of, well, why are you giving me the decision?
Mhm.
Okay, well, it's gotta be changed. And if the teacher feels like changing it, you know what I mean, or if they get the grade and they change it in Infinite Campus, then I don't have to have the, well, he just hasn't changed it yet. Well,
right?
you had the conversation, he said he'd change it, I'll wait until he changes it, that type of thing, you know,
Mhm.
so. That's the way we can do it, is that it has to be in Infinite Campus, and there we go.
Well, and if we're holding our teachers accountable to get the grades in time
Exactly.
too, then
Yep.
that shouldn't be an issue.
Yeah, we had that conversation as well,
Yeah.
what if it's a big project, and what if this, and what if that, and then that's what led to the, okay, how much does testing versus regular work, you know, weigh, and then are there deadlines for actually getting work turned in, and what is that? So, I mean, this took a whole wonderful turn, and it's gonna open up a lot of conversations for the future for us too.
Well, I know for some classes that if, say, you happen to be sick on the day of the test, and you like talk with the teacher and you're like, hey, when can I make this up? And then you set up a time, get it made up, but rather than just not putting your grade in, they'll put it in as a 0 because you haven't taken it, and then that could drop you down to the F, so then you can't do activities. And now, since you did it late, not because it was, you just didn't do it, but because you were sick and all of that, then their mindset is, oh, well, I don't have to grade it until the end of the quarter, because that's what they say on their late work form. It says, don't expect it to be graded until the end of the quarter.
We'll have to take a look at that. Yeah,
Said-
I heard that one.
Yeah, it's like, it could be graded earlier, but it won't, like, I don't know. It was something like of the sorts, but that's what some teachers,
Yeah, and I think that if that is the case, or if there's some variation of that, it's just an easy, quick, you come to me, the student comes to me and says, this is what the situation is, I verify it with the teacher, take the 0 out, put an M or whatever in, or just leave it blank, you know, or just, you know, we could figure it out. But again, that's where the communication piece comes in. If I give you 3 or 4 days lead time to understand that you're on this wire right now, that gives you enough time to have the conversations you need to have, advocate for yourself, talk to the teachers, get the help that you need, figure out what's missing, and then get it turned in. So again, that's where the whole streamlining this process piece comes into play. We'll get better at it. Like I said, I'm 4 months into it, and I've already seen a lot of really awesome effort from our students. So,
And usually I've communicated to those teachers too. Like if I know that you completed a test or turned an assignment in, I will reach out to that teacher as well, just to double check that they got it done.
yeah.
So, and then that way I also know that there's some more lenience with that. If I know that you got your stuff in and it's just waiting to be graded, and if you're sitting on that bubble to have you move it up, like I'm gonna be more lenient of you to participate
Yeah,
than if you're sitting at a 34, 40%,
yeah,
you're not getting up to 60% by just completing that one test because you didn't turn in any of your homework assignments either with it, or
Yeah.
you didn't complete 2 projects. So there's back-end communication that
yeah. I just,
comes through with it too. So.
I don't want, like, have someone come up to you and say, oh, I know I'm failing, but it's just because this test hasn't been graded, and then you let them participate, test gets graded, and with that test, they're still failing, you know? So,
I calculated out.
So you're, I mean, again, part of this policy has to be that it's not so burdensome, that you're not able to do,
I think a lot of it's new, like, it's new for everyone.
Really?
For these kids.
Holding them accountable is kind of new?
I shouldn't. s-
Well, I'm actually
sorta,
kind of
yeah.
asking.
To be
Yeah,
honest with
it
these
probably
coaches, I
is.
mean, that's some of the things the coaches have told me, that we didn't really have a lot of this in place.
Well,
Or me being on top of it as much as I've been on top
Yeah.
of it with these kids.
yeah.
And
That's scary.
Well, it
so
is, but
that's why, like, me getting in contact with these kids 2 weeks prior, with their, starting with their coaches, because they have relationships with their coaches better than they have a relationship with me. And then it's not, they're not unaware when I email them saying, asking them where they're at this point, or, yep, grade is out, now you're failing.
And I think the more you do this and the more we hold them accountable and follow it like to a T, like don't let certain people slide, the less you're gonna have to do.
Absolutely.
Because they're gonna all start talking and they're gonna see that, oh, so-and-so didn't get to play because they didn't get their grade up. I better try and get mine up.
so does anybody feel as though C minus is even on the table at this
I
point?
wonder if we can do an average. I like what you did with bowling.
Yeah.
I think
We do
that
an
makes
average.
sense, because you are gonna have your elective classes where if you're putting in the effort, your chance of getting a higher grade or
Yeah, 'cause
feasible, where,
like for band and choir, as long as you actively participate in class, you get a good grade, you know?
so then if you have the class that more people are failing, it should average out, I would think.
Well,
Or
and
more people are
I don't
doing-
think it's necessarily like off the table, but I do agree that it's gonna take time to get there, so.
Would this
Well,
be kind of like a baby step
Yeah.
toward that? I
I
don't
mean,
know.
well, obviously it doesn't have to
Or
be.
even the average might be baby steps to get to that, is what, I don't know how easy that would be to do, so, yeah.
Well, personally, I would want to make sure we're understanding who it is that we're trying to delineate. You know, by going to say a C instead of a D minus. I mean, if the kids you're working on, you're just going to lose them from all athletics because they're not going to give you C minus work, then what did we achieve? You know, if you didn't motivate them to move, I'll give the example when I was coaching baseball. A kid did something really stupid and his parent took away baseball. Like the one thing, well, I get it, but this particular kid had no outlet for his life. And they took away like the one outside thing. So instead, now he's sitting at home on his phone, not being able to play. It was like totally the wrong, I mean, I got why they did it, because they thought it would have the biggest impact on his feeling, but like, he had no other athletic activity in his life at all. So I just want to make sure that we're not taking away from a group of kids, that you'll just lose them from participating and now they're going to spiral. You know, again, it is passing. You can graduate. Can you graduate getting all D minuses?
Yes.
So,
Well, that's because that's what we have it set at.
for
We'd
graduation,
have to change that to say passing is C, right?
for graduation,
Or I don't
I don't
know,
know if that's a state thing or
Oh.
a school board thing.
okay.
yeah.
So I'd have to look at the statutory.
And I
the
apologize,
statute
I'm,
up on
I'm
it.
getting off. So what it sounds like though, is that right now you guys should implement, since we've, like, you feel like it's only 1 year, that we even implemented holding them accountable, which it sounds like you did a great job. Which I did hear good things, that we should keep doing that before we look to move the bar, is what it sounds like.
And then that will also give us some time to take a look at that other, I mean, if we're gonna look at a 2.0 average, what segment of kids are we actually talking about here? Is it the same, you know what I mean? And then is it, we can identify
Right.
that group that is gonna have the biggest impact on it
Yeah.
and move from there.
Because you're trying to use this as a motivator, and we just need to make sure, right, that it's actually going to motivate. That's all.
I think it'd be easy enough to pull the same data of, okay, here's my list that we're gonna go by this year, but here would be my list if it was C minus also. So then we have that data to compare
Yeah,
too.
you could pull this, one and the same,
Mm-hmm.
because you just have to pull the GPA list and
Yep.
cross-reference it. and everything else.
And you have no problem with coaches still doing something different? You're okay with that?
You go ahead, I am. That's a service.
Yeah, yeah, I mean, it's on them. And then I always tell them that they need to make sure they explain it, that they want to raise that bar.
So I
in
would
their
think,
program.
so I would think one approach, and I don't know how often you talk to coaches, probably pretty often, but one approach could be is, instead of going at it from more of a policy, is it could be that by the time you want to implement this, all the coaches have already implemented, like Mr. Sherwin did, but just go at it, going after individual coaches, going, hey, have you considered doing this? Sam Sherwin did it, it had a lot of positives, and maybe you could get more of a grassroots effort at that than just implementing it across the board. Because it does affect school field trips, which again, do we think we should move it up to a C- for field trips? Because that seems different
It does
than
seem
athletics.
different, but the pretense behind the field trip would be that it's academic in nature, right? They're going to a historical site, they're learning something new. I'm not gonna take, you know, you do class-wide field trips like baseball games, and we're talking about individual classes going to individual places. The choir, the bands are gonna take them someplace where they're gonna learn something, or they're gonna get something from a different, you know what I
Right.
mean?
I do.
So they're academic based, so why would I take that opportunity
Right.
away for that academic experience?
Right.
For a C-, you know what I mean? So for
Yes.
me, the field trip has more value academically than that sport does, although that can
Yeah.
be debated backwards and forwards.
So you'd want to leave it at a D- of,
I would keep it
to let them
uniform
go
across
on an
the board.
academically,
Yeah, I
okay.
would leave it uniform across the board, but again, it can be, you know, the cosplay club or whatever, they go to Renfest and, well, yeah, you could put it, you know, because it
Yeah.
is part of the club, it fits in perfectly with what they're trying to do. But again, if she wants to incorporate a higher standard, absolutely, I'll support her 100%.
And if you have it, you know, going back to the coach's side, if they're doing that, they might have more bias to let somebody participate versus, here's the school policy, this is my policy. And
Right.
if I'm,
now
I got
you're
s-
in
I've
control.
got 4 kids that need to score in golf and 2 are on this line, am I gonna let them play or not? You know, I'm gonna let them play. If it's a meet, you know, so I think it's gotta be a school thing, in my opinion, even being on the other side of it.
It'd be tough having two policies, is what you're saying.
It would, yeah.
Yes.
Although I think Mr.
Well-
Sherwin managed it
Yeah.
somehow
not
pretty
saying
well.
it can't.
I agree with what
But
you're
he's still
saying.
like his
I just
wife,
think it needs to
so
be
it didn't work.
implemented. It doesn't if
Yeah.
you're going, the schools is
almost
D-,
hurts it more
but if
than
you're
helps
saying
it.
it's C-, it's C- across the board. We're not going to
Right.
waver back and forth if there's a meet today or not and stuff. This is what it is and this is what we stick by.
And C- was just one thing we threw out there. I mean, it could be D. You could go up to a D. Like, you know, I don't know. It was just like, how can we raise the bar just a little bit?
Yeah,
So.
it's good, but, you know,
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
Kevin's point,
Well-
like some of those people that work so hard, they just can't
Yeah.
get it. We're gonna penalize them, even though it's passing.
Yeah.
Would love to see it at, you know, B, but.
Yeah, right, yeah, that would be even better, but, yeah.
And a lot of it too is some of these kids just don't turn the assignments in.
That's,
They also have it done, but they don't just physically get
that's
it
the
in.
frustrating one, yeah, that's,
Or it's
I've had
sitting
those
there,
There needs to
the
be
teacher's
policy around
grade.
that.
So,
well, and maybe that alone would get them to bump their grades up, just to, maybe it does come down to whether it's you're turning them in or not, I don't know. 0 missing assignments, there you go.
and maybe that's something I just do more frequently with those head coaches, that every 2 weeks or every week. These are the kids that we're sitting at right now with failing grades. These are the classes, these are the assignments that they're missing.
Were you gonna say something?
I was, but I'm okay. Because then it's going to go on another tangent and it's almost 9 o'clock.
Yeah, we put a lot in this. a
Yeah.
lot of controversial things to talk about.
David likes controversial things. We have discussions
No,
about it all the
honestly,
time.
this is probably one of my,
I'm just not afraid of it.
this is probably one of my favorite board meetings, because we are really talking about stuff that, yeah, that we need to talk about.
Okay. So Nikki, you have thoughts on how you're gonna move forward?
Yeah, I would like to say it as is, just because we basically just went 1 year with it.
Yep.
And even last fall was my intro year of like slowly, fully pushing it out. And then second semester wise, like, it was pretty hardcore with it. Would like to go with it, what we have in place right now for a whole nother year. But me personally, I will be getting the list of the coaches even sooner. That way, we're on top of these kids and making sure that they get their assignments.
And
And
maybe
then
this will
hopefully that
fix
list
itself.
will-
Yeah,
What's that?
maybe this will fix itself then.
Correct.
Maybe,
Yep.
you know,
And
we'll
I think
get more of them up.
with these
there.
kids now knowing fully what it is, it's gonna help them out. Same thing with the parents.
Mhm.
Like, that's my other thing too, is some of these parents just don't understand as well, or they're surprised, and it's like, well,
And I think that's the
Part
big
of it.
key, is holding
so
them
that's why-
accountable and sticking
Yeah.
and going, you know, enforcing it.
and so that on
yeah.
August 7th, this is going to be another key piece of my presentation,
Okay.
is to make sure that those parents that are there, that this is what it is. And if they're not there, I'm gonna say, it was in the presentation, it's in our online information handbook, so they can reference back there.
Because we have to sign that we received it, right?
Mhm.
So again, in order for a kid to participate, a parent has to acknowledge that they were
Read through.
provided it, that policy.
Yeah, I'm good with that, and,
David, we're good with what
As
you're
long
gonna move
as-
forward with?
yep.
Continuing with what you were doing this fall, this
Yeah,
spring?
Just streamlining it, you know, I
Mhm.
think that's the most important thing, is that we have check off list, or, you know, when they go to fill out that form, it's just, this has to be done. And that makes it easier, so, you know, we can get these kids to get their stuff in. And that's the ultimate goal. Just the evidence,
Still a lot of work on your part,
Yeah.
and thank you.
But, like I said, if.
Nope, I know.
Once you
I
do it a
understand.
few times, then maybe they'll all start, okay, they're really cracking down now, so, yeah. Just gotta follow through.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thanks,
thank
both of you.
you for everything you guys do. Sorry for such a long meeting to sit through. But now everybody gets to
Just
go.
preparing me for the school year.
Okay, with that, then, we are going to go, the school board is going to go into a closed session. So,
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, we
No, we just say it.
just say it. Yes. And then, obviously, after that's, then we will reopen
Mhm.
the board meeting to finish it up.